color. 5 minutes. Just thought I'd try to tease you.
Yeah, well, I don't like the reserve thing, you know? Like, I'll share my seat with anybody.
Thank you. Depends on who they are.
As long as they've got the shot and they have their vaccine or whatever.
Amen to that one. I'm just teasing.
Although tomorrow's my second shot day.
I've had both. Husband's had both.
I said to David Dias, I said, I don't know what this is, man. They'll only let you schedule the second shot on a Friday or a Saturday. If I'm not going to feel well from a shot, I want it to be on a work day. I don't want it to be on my weekend.
Right? Yeah, I don't want to feel crappy when I'm
I
on.
mean, come on.
That's very true. Monday through Friday, please.
Yeah, wait, it's right there.
That's very true. I never thought of it that way. Yeah.
Good evening. We are going to go ahead and begin the meeting. Thank you for joining us. We will first do the call to order for the roll call.
Chair Lorene,
Here.
Vice Chair De La Vega,
Here.
Board Member Bromfield, Board Member Strom,
Here.
Board Member Massing, Board Member Mathers,
Here.
Board Member Vitale.
Here.
Okay, we will now all stand and face the flag for the Pledge of Allegiance. I pledge allegiance to the flag of the United States of America and to the republic for which it stands, one nation, under God, indivisible, with liberty and justice for all. Okay, we have the agenda before us tonight. Does anybody want to make a motion to approve the agenda?
I'll move to approve.
Second.
All in favor?
Aye.
Are there any comments from the public on non-agenda items? All right, fantastic. Are there any comments from the board on non-agenda items? All right, we will now move to our official agenda item. Before we start this evening, I know that there are a lot of people with a lot of opinions, both for and against what is going to be discussed. What I ask at the start of this meeting is that everyone follow the pledge of civility, which is to be respectful of one another, even when we disagree. We will not have shouting, clapping, either way, because we have a lot of people and everybody deserves their say. And before this meeting, we have received a number of emails, both of for and against. And as we deliberate this evening, those items will also be taken into consideration. So I ask that everybody is respectful. The other thing I ask, and I want you to know, is that this board here is not elected. It is not paid. It is volunteers and members of this community just like you. We are here of our free will because we want to serve. So please remember that as you go forward with your comments. All right, so action items, staff.
Good afternoon, Madam Chair, LPA Board. Tom Reitz, Senior Planner for the record. I'm going to give a short presentation of 4 or 5 slides to introduce the project and then turn it immediately over to the applicant. So tonight we are assigning or proposing to assign a commercial planned unit development zoning and a neighborhood special district land use with the master site plan approval. The site consists of 4 parcels equaling 48.99 acres. It's just south of Martin County High School, west of the Sailfish Splash and the Martin County Correctional Facility. It's sandwiched in between Cantor Highway and Willoughby Boulevard. You can see Riverland Mobile Home to the south and other properties that exist in the county. These properties were recently annexed 2018 into the city. The applicant is requesting or to depart from the code in 3 instances. First, the parking code Multifamily dwelling units for one bedrooms typically require 1.5 spaces per unit. The two bedrooms require 2 spaces per unit, bringing the total for the project to 722, and the applicant is providing 700 spaces for residential. The second request is from the parking code also, within a large commercial development which provides for shopping carts by the patrons. Typically, one parking space per 25 spaces is dedicated for the storage of those shopping carts. The storage area includes a fence material to keep the shopping carts in the space. Required spaces to be dedicated for storage of the shopping carts is 24, and the applicant is providing 14 spaces for storage. And then third, finally, from the landscaping code, the code requires that interior landscaped islands be provided for every 10 parking spaces, and that each interior island not be less than 6 feet in width and contain not less than one shade tree or a combination of shrubs, ground cover, and grass and mulch. The commercial parking area for the Costco building's parking lot contains 14 rows with more than 10 spaces without a landscaped island. So those are the 3 requests or departure from the code by the applicant. And then finally, the applicant is requesting or proposing to mitigate existing wetlands per section 5.0303 of the Land Development Code and as permitted by policy 5.A5.5D of the city's comprehensive plan. With that, I'd like to interrupt staff's presentation and turn it over to the applicant.
Good evening. For the record, my name is Bob Rains. I'm a land use attorney with the Gunster Law Firm here in Stewart, and I'm here this evening on behalf of the applicant. I also have with me this evening Joe Marino, who is the applicant, and Mr. Marino will come up and make a few comments in a little bit, and also Mark Mann, who is a representative for Costco, and we also have the rest of our development team here this evening. So when we finish our presentation, we'll certainly be glad to try to answer any questions that you might have. I would like for the record just to reflect that we have turned in as part of our package the proof of our notices to the surrounding property owners and the posting of the signs on the property so that we've met that requirement for the notice requirements for this hearing tonight. Believe it or not, we're excited to be here this evening. This has been a long process for Costco. It's actually been going on some time. I think we've been working on this almost for 3 years now is when we first Mr. Marino first came with us with the project, and we came to the city, and we've been working through it. And it should have taken a while to do it because we've looked and spoken with neighbors, we've spoken with the city staff, and we've done a lot of listening, and we've tried to accommodate this project so that it's something that the city can be proud of and it will be an asset and a benefit to the city, and we truly believe that will be the case. What I'm going to have Doug Fitzwater come up and make a presentation to you, give you a little bit more detail with respect to the site plan, and he can also talk about all of the iterations and what we've gone through to get to what's before you this evening. So with that, let me turn it over to Doug.
Hello, Doug Fitzwater with Lucido and Associates, representing the applicant. So I wanted to give you a little bit larger context map of the area, just so that everyone's familiar. This is the 49 acres that we're in for an application under right now for the Kenner CPUD. Some of the changes that have occurred recently in the last, let's say, 10 years, we've had the Veterans Memorial Bridge, so now we have 2 bridges into Palm City. We've had some significant improvements to Canner Highway. There's been discussions with this right-of-way that Willoughby will soon extend over to US 1. We have Sailfish Splash in the county building department over on this side, which would actually be a nice amenity for the proposed apartments. We have the Crossings here, which is an affordable housing project that's been there for probably about 15 years. So with that, I want to go to our next slide, which is Canner Highway. I thought this was interesting. Martin County's, this is from Martin County's website. We have Cantor Highway in 1966, two-lane highway. Cantor Highway, 1995, two-lane highway. So in this 30-year period between photos, there hasn't been much change, and a lot of people remember Cantor Highway the way it was. Now in 1996, I think it was around 1996, we had some improvements where they four-laned Cantor Highway, and for the next 13 or so years, that's the way that Cantor Highway was operating. Then recently, we've had the expansion for Cantor Highway to 6 lanes. So there have been some significant improvements to Cantor Highway over the last 15 years that could now support a project similar to this. So wanted to show you this graphic as well. This is a graphic that shows the two ordinances, number 2327, 2016, 2337, 2017. These were the two documents that were utilized to annex in the property, the 49 acres, into the city of Stuart. It was annexed in without a land use and without a zoning that's applicable to the city of Stuart. So that's why we're here as part of our application, is to request a CPUD zoning district as well as a land use for neighborhood special district. So this is this is a graphic showing the limits of the city of Stuart. So you can see that this property is within the city limits. Martin County High School is, the crossings, Lychee Tree Farms, Cabana Point. These properties are not within the city. But you can see how the annexation incorporated these properties into the city of Stuart. So this is a graphic showing existing zoning. So this is what the zoning was when it was annexed in. It was A1A, which is an agricultural zoning because the property was utilized as a tree farm. And prior to the current owners purchasing the property, it was owned by members of the Lychee Tree Farm family. What's that? Oh, it's not true? I apologize. Okay.
So it is or isn't leaking?
Well, not the Lychee Tree Farms, but as a family with them. So we have the A1A agricultural zoning district. And then we have the proposed zoning change to the commercial planned unit development. So the land use at the time with Martin County was low density residential, and we're asking for a neighborhood special district. So the land use, this is our request to assign a future land use designation neighborhood special district. Zoning, request the zoning designation of CPUD. To allow retail bulk merchandise for Costco at 162,000 square feet. Standalone fuel kiosk and fuel facility, 398 residential apartment units, and retail and restaurant pads. So I want to kind of walk you all through the process that we've been doing to date. So back in 2018, we submitted a site plan for solely the Costco. We had access off of Cantor Highway. We were relocating the DOT basin to the rear. The property, Costco looked at it. They just weren't able. They wanted to bring Joe Marino into the project. So what we did is our next iteration, and submitted this back in. Back in 2020, this is the Costco that was up against Lychee Tree Farms. We had the fuel facility down in this region. We had retail. We had residential apartment units wrapping the property. And we had a restaurant pad over in this section here. So when we made the application, and under review with the city asked us, and I believe rightly so, to provide a connector road between Cantor Highway and Willoughby Boulevard. So we looked at the design. We couldn't make it work with this design the way it was set up with the apartments here. We would have taken out the Costco parking. So we went back to the table and redesigned it. Redesigned the project back in late 2020. So we came up with this plan. So I think this meets a lot of the goals that the city was looking for. We have the connector road between Canner Highway now. We have a traffic circle. We have the connector road continues up to Willoughby. This will be a signalized intersection. We maintained and expanded the FDOT pond here. So we have retail. We have some retail or restaurant pads here. The fuel facilities pushed back off of Canner Highway. We pushed the Costco back. It's no longer over in this section. We put the residential apartments along the north property, so it's more consolidated. I think it works better. We have the residential side, we have the Costco side, we have the connector road. So with that, then we met with the adjacent property owners and wanted to listen to some of their concerns with this site plan. So, whoops, what happened there? So we met the adjacent property owners here and discussed some of the issues that they had. One of them was, privacy from the apartments. Then the other was interesting that we hadn't thought about was this is their growing area for their landscape material that they sell in their operation. So one of the, so we looked at what we could do from a site plan perspective to solve those issues. And we came up with this site plan. So in listening to the adjacent neighbor, we pressed this building back now. We have the parking. So we had our architect do shade studies of the critical times of the year. And there was no shade thrown onto this property. The other item we did that helps is, this is the previous plan. We took these garages and this landscaped island and we placed it along the property line. So now we have garages and we widened the buffer to, in some areas, almost 40 feet wide. So we have a wide landscape buffer and garages here. So as we continued through the process, we've also been talking with the DOT and the connection here and the signalization. So our next iteration that we submitted in 2021, April 2021, adjusts this signalization here to align the driveways with coordination with our traffic engineer. And so with this now we have a more positive alignment. We have the connector road. We have, for example, we have the DOT lake. We have the dry detention, which will be planted out in native plants. We have a lake. We have littoral. We have native plantings planted around the perimeter. We have littoral in this area as well. And then as you continue up, we have dry retention in this area that's going to be planted out. And then along Willoughby, we have a lake, and there's several large oak trees along this that we've been working with our civil engineer to preserve those oak trees. So I want to talk about density too. We're asking for 398 units based on the land development regulations under neighborhood special district. Outside of the CRA, we're allowed up to 15 units per acre. We're providing 8.1 units per acre, which is calculated project-wide. I want to show some renderings of what the proposed apartments will look like. This is more of a bird's eye view, looking north over the proposed lake to the 4-story apartments. So you can see the native landscaping surrounding the property. We have royal palms that we're going to plant along the connector road. Here's another picture of the elevations. Here's a architectural rendering of the proposed Costco. And this is for the out parcels. These are the architectural elevations of the 2 out parcels that we're proposing, and then as well as the retail strip center. So as Tom alluded to, what we're looking for is, these are the waiver requests. We're requesting a waiver of 22 parking spaces for the multifamily. Joe operates several multifamily projects, and he feels that 1.76 spaces per unit is adequate. Costco is requesting a reduction in the number of cart corrals, because operationally, they just don't need 24. They have people that are constantly out there collecting the carts. It's part of their operations. And we're also asking for 14 rows to have more than 10 parking spaces without an island. So I want to also give you some information about Costco and some of the things that they do in the community. Their employment facts here, you can see where they pay service assistants $16 to $24 an hour. Service clerks are up to $27 an hour. The full-time cashier after 6 years will make $59,500. And then also they provide medical, dental, vision, other insurance, and also access to 401k plans. And then also, once the cashier after 6 years is at $59,000, they also do bonus checks every, at times for $5,000 to $8,000. And I think this is really important too. This just kind of goes to show how good of an employer Costco is in the community. When they open, they expect a turnover of about 13%. After 1 year, their turnover drops down to about 7% for the Costco. And they also look to hire part-time. So they look to have a 50% between full-time and part-time. And then after 6 months, you receive core medical, dental, and vacation benefits, and you have to work 23 hours per week. But Costco guarantees 24 hours a week to part-time employees. So that's a positive. So with that, I'd like to turn it over to Joe Marino. Yep.
Before I turn it back over to Joe, I did want to just mention a couple of other quick things. We did have, and Doug touched on it, we met with the Lychee Farms folks, nursery folks. We actually met with them twice. We presented the plan. They gave us input and what their concerns were, and as Doug showed you, we tried to address them to the best of our abilities. And Joe can speak a little bit more to that. We also had a meeting with the Riverland folks. They had representatives. We reached out to them and said, we'd love to talk to you about our project. And they sent representatives. I don't know if anybody's here this evening from Riverland with their representatives, but we did also meet with them. So we made a concerted effort to find out what the neighbors' concerns were, what the issues were, and again, we worked through staff. So with that, let me turn it over to Joe.
Bob, can I have,
Yes,
did
ma'am.
you meet with the single-family homeowners on Willoughby?
The single-family homeowners on Willoughby.
On, that parcel that's right above you, the R1 parcel?
Oh, I'm sorry, the 5-acre
Yeah.
tract. I don't believe we did not meet with her, no.
Okay.
So,
Good evening. My name's Joe Marino, principal of M&M Realty Partners. I just want to tell you a little bit about myself and the company. I started out as a tradesman. My grandfather was a tradesman. My father was a tradesman. We started out as laborers, carpenters, masons, ironworkers, and operating engineers in the building business. And when I was about 19, I decided I wanted to go out and not only build for other people, but also build for myself. And so we started building apartments, shopping centers, and commercial properties. And we still remain a private company, 30-plus years later. About 20 years ago, I joined forces with another gentleman named Jack Morris, who had a similar background. And we're partners. That's what's M&M, Morris and Marino. And we still build and own our own properties in multiple states. We don't have any institutional partners. It's sort of old school landlord, family ownership. We take pride in what we do. We try to build it for the long haul, and We don't like to sell anything. We like to keep it, manage it, and become part of the neighborhood and the community. Back around 20 years ago at the same time, we started building a relationship with Costco and had an opportunity to meet the founder and chairman. And he gave us an opportunity to develop some properties for him. We took advantage of that opportunity and we came through, and from that day we became a trusted partner with Costco to develop sites for them in California and Florida and New Jersey. And we're proud of that relationship that we've earned over the years. And that's what sort of brought us here tonight. And as Bob and Doug said, we've spent a lot of time because not only do we want to build this right, but we want to make sure that we've heard the concerns of the neighbors and the city and the county and DOT and the agencies that have input on this. Because if it's a big investment on our part, we want it to work. We want it to work for the long haul. For it to be successful, the community needs to be successful in the long haul. And that's why, folks like companies like Costco and people like ourselves like to get involved with the community, work with the community outside of our developments to make sure that that's happening. So we're very gracious and grateful for the opportunity to be part of the community, and we'll work very, very hard to please as many people as we can. We know that we can't please everybody. I can't even do that in my own house, but I try. But our commitment on a personal level, that's very important to us. So again, I thank everybody for their time. I thank the audience for coming out tonight, and look forward to speaking with people that have additional concerns. Thank you.
So that concludes our presentation. We have our development team here. We'll be glad to answer any questions you might have. So,
Great.
thank you. Yeah, we can leave the site plan up.
All right, thank you very much. All right, we're now going to move into the public comment for the evening. As I will remind you, to make a comment, you must have filled out one of these items. If you have not, you cannot make a comment. Your comments will be 3 minutes, no more. There will not be clapping, cheering, or anything of the sort, because we have a lot of people, like I said, with a lot of opinions that we want to get through. You are welcome that if the person before you says almost the same thing, you can say, I support the person before me. But we're going to go ahead and get this done so we can get everybody's opinion heard. All right, first up, Mrs. Debbie Schlimetry? There you go.
I really didn't plan to speak tonight, but I'm from Palm City. I've lived there for 38 years, and we realize that it's been approved to build large storage facilities in Martin County, which limits how many people can store whatever they store in the large facilities. So why not a Costco be built for everyone in an industrial area? They also bring taxes to the community, which I'm sure you guys would love. It was a shame that it was denied in Palm City. We were really looking forward to that. The site was perfect, but that was turned down. So now this second option, I think, is also perfect. Otherwise, here we go again. It goes to Port St. Lucie. They already have a BJ's and a Sam's, so we deserve a Costco. I'm pretty sure the majority of people who are against it at this time will shop there. If you build it, they will shop. Please approve it.
Thank you very much. Mr. Michael Craig? Mr. Michael Craig? Okay. Yep, when you're talking at the mic, yep.
Thanks. Okay. First off, I'd like to say I'm sure everyone would like a Costco, just not in their backyard. But what I'm going to start off with is I'm a Willoughby resident, basically walking distance from where this is proposed. My background is in civil engineering and site development. So I'm a retired road building contractor. Been here for half my life, 30-something years. What I see happening is this. This proposed location is probably one of the most congested areas in the city. Palm City said no to Costco, And they were even with the proximity of next to I-90, or next to the turnpike. Now, the city's proposing this location next door to a high school. At last count, there was more than a dozen projects within the pipeline of the city under construction at this time, not to mention what has been built recently. Before I go on to our road situation, I'd like to say I've become familiar with the Lychee Tree Nursery, and they have a pond that services their trees. That pond in a drought season is basically there's no water. You turn around and take 49 acres and develop it and put dry or wet retention area, because I work with engineers in my own projects, there will be no water in that pond. So you basically drove them out of business. That's first off, someone that's been here for that long. Getting on to the growth problem, responsible growth is one thing, but growth on steroids is irresponsible. Our roads can't handle the traffic at peak times of the day right now. Even with COVID, when you go on to Indian Street, from US 1 over the Indian Street Bridge is bumper to bumper. The turn lanes, it sometimes takes 2 lights, 3 lights in the wintertime to make a left-hand turn. This isn't only Indian Street, Monterey Road, Willoughby Boulevard, where I live, Pomeroy. At Pomeroy, when I leave to go out to head down to Palm Beach, sometimes it takes 2 lights just to get into the turn lane, and then if the first car doesn't move in 5 seconds, the light goes off in 5 more seconds. I've worked with the road department on that for 2 years now. But this isn't just right there. This is Indian Street, Monterey, Willoughby, Pomeroy. Left turn lanes backed up into the main traffic sometimes during the peak hours. You go into the Home Depot within walking distance as Costco, you can't even get in the turn lane at certain times of the day. You're stuck in a 2-lane road behind you, hoping no one rear ends you as it is now. And that road was rebuilt not that many years ago, and it'd be awful expensive to rebuild it. FDOT adding time to traffic lights on main arteries while you can sit at Willoughby, Pomeroy, etc., as I mentioned earlier, to get into a turn lane is just ridiculous. And to make things worse, you want to build a road through the middle of Costco project connecting Cantor to Willoughby Boulevard so all the tractor and trailers can exit after making their deliveries on the Willoughby Boulevard. Bottom line is, what I heard earlier, it sounds like it's a favor to us who are against this because we're going to have another light and a way to get from Willoughby to Cantor.
Your time's up, sir.
That's 3 minutes?
That was 3 minutes.
Okay.
Lisa Miller, please.
Bottom line, put it out.
Sir, your time is up.
Yeah.
Lisa Miller. No, I'm sorry. Excuse me. This evening, there are a number of people here. Their comments will all be heard. We will go for 3 minutes, and then the next person will come up. Lisa Miller.
That's me. I hadn't really planned in talking, but I'm a Martin County native. My husband is a second-generation Martin County native. I've raised my kids here. I'm not against change. I've lived here since the 70s. I've seen change. My mom used to have to drive me down to the Palm Beach Mall to go shopping for clothes. Then we got a mall, so that's nice. I mean, I do like change. However, the traffic is going to be horrible. If you think that people aren't going to visit this Costco from Port St. Lucie, you're wrong. Has anybody been out to 714 at 5 o'clock in the afternoon when that 4-lane road turns into 2 as you cross over the turnpike? That's a nightmare. And that traffic, people are going to come on 95 and the turnpike. They're going to come to the Costco. There's got to be a better location for this. Something closer, South County, closer to 95, closer to a highway, because people are going to come from all over, and the traffic's going to be a nightmare. Like I said, I'm not against growth, but like the gentleman before me said, I'm against growth on steroids. We have a comprehensive plan in this county. I don't know what happened to it. It used to be slow growth. It's, as a native Martin County person, it's really disheartening to see what's happened to our nice little beautiful town. We enjoy a lot of things here, and we want to keep it that way for our kids. Thank you.
Thank you. Linda K. Richards.
I have a lot to say, but I do want to apologize for my outbreak. I'm very emotional about this. I'm going to let my brother address some of those issues, but I want to say good evening, LPA members. I'm Linda K. Richards, and I'm here to speak against the CPUD. I want to be clear, I'm not anti-Costco, and I'm not against property rights. However, as I detailed in my email to you guys yesterday, the request for this development goes against the spirit of why a PUD is used for a zoning tool. In reference to the Stuart, Florida Land Development Code, Section 2.0700, designation of planned unit developments, this development does not meet the following. This development does not provide a variety of natural features and scenic areas, improved amenities, and does not protect adjacent, existing, and future development. This development does not include principal and accessory uses and structures substantially related to the character of the development itself and the surrounding areas which it is part. This development is not suitable character and compatible with the surrounding uses. The residential uses comprises 40% of the land, not 30%, when you take out open space, natural vegetation, and wetlands as per the code. The residential uses are not designed to be compatible with the adjacent commercial uses. The target Costco customers, small businesses, and high-income households of 3 or more people. In fact, small apartment dwellers are far from Costco's target customer. There's not much land like this left, and while it's not anyone's place to tell the developers what they should put on the land, it's your place to tell them what they cannot. This is not what a PUD is intended for. It is a 23-acre commercial retail development and a 14.7-acre rental apartment complex, and it's being wrapped up as a CPUD to skirt around zoning laws. The residential portion alone is 27 units per acre, not 8.1. You cannot use the whole site. It's in Chapter 12 of the land development that says you can only use the residential side as your, for units per acre. They're asking for 27 units per acre on that 14-acre site where that apartment's going to be, not 8.1. Where's the variance? And a final note on growth. The city has over 2,200 housing units currently approved, with over 600 in review, including this one. Using the average household of 2.5 persons households per year, 7,100 new residents in the next 5 years. Current population, 16,100. I've done the math. That's a 44% increase. Additionally, on page 7 of the 2020 Evaluation Appraisal Report for the Comprehensive Plan of the City of Stuart, in Table 1-2, population projection states that in 2035 we'll have a population of 19,064. With these developments approved, our population is going to be well over 23,000 in the next 5 years. Think about that. By 2026, we will have exceeded our population projection of 2035 by 4,000. So you have to wonder, can we handle this massive growth in population? Can our overcrowded schools handle it? Can our water supply handle it? Can our river handle it? Can our roads handle it? Right now, you can't even get a parking spot at the beach on a weekend. In closing, this land was never intended for this type of development in the future use maps. It was designated as low-density housing. That is what it was supposed to be. The landowners and developers have no right to build this development, and it is not the city's responsibility to maximize the amount of profit in the landowner and developers' pockets. The landowners were well aware of the future land use designation when they purchased this land. And just because they want to change it, just because they want a massive return on their investment,
your time is up.
perhaps because they overpaid for the land.
Excuse me, your time is up. Jerry Ketchland. Please shut those doors. No, we're not doing that. We are not doing that. Stop. Sir, you're up.
You want a copy of this?
We have one. Thank you.
Linda and I spoke often, and it's no problem. The basic thing is, can I recover my time here?
Yeah, sir, we will restart your time. Thank you.
Thank you. A PUD is not, as a normal zoning, a PUD is done for a reason. It's to take a piece of land to make it better. Along with that, the city approves it. It's very strict, all right? And the reason for it is to make things better. It is not a means of avoiding normal zoning. This project is totally a means of avoiding normal zoning. That requires compatibility among the site. Typical things would be things that you would see like some of the larger developments around here. Putting 398 units with a destination big box store, okay, is not compatible. It is not the appropriate use. Your own codes say compatibility, all right, your own codes. Going on from there to this second thing, I'm going through some items. Residential density is in two places. It's in Chapter 12 of the zoning codes. It's also in the letter, the code, 2337-2017. That was the board meeting that said that in a PUD, the residential density shall be calculated on the net residential area, not the total. She's right, it's 27 units per acre. All right, that is correct. I'll give you any information that you want as a follow-up. So the residential density comes out to what she said, 26, 27 units per acre. It is wrong, it's just flat wrong. It's just against your own laws. Unified control. We shouldn't even be having this meeting. The basic premise of a PUD at the state regulation level is that a PUD has unified control. That is one person, one entity that sets the rules and verifies that every person on that site is going to, you don't have that. Have any of you seen a letter on a unified control? Who's in charge? If no one's in charge, it is not a PUD. Okay, it is illegal by state law for planning and development. Look it up, it's real. It says right in your own codes, PUD for planning and development requires unified control. All right, those are specific rejection issues. Ingress and egress. There's 3 inlets in there. 2 of them have decel lanes to enter. The northern 2 entrances have deceleration lanes allowing cars to get off of Cantor and slow down. The southern entrance does not have a deceleration lane. The southern entrance is where the big bulk trucks, the bulk haulers, the tankers, and the supply to Costco are going to come in. They have no way to decelerate. In essence, the right lane of a 3-lane road, Cantor Highway, is going to be perpetually closed. All right, they have no decel lane there. You cannot let that happen. They just improved Cantor Highway. We all know that, and we all cheered when it was done. Other issues, I reviewed the NFPA codes, that's the National Fire Protection Association codes. If I was a fire marshal, and you need to look at this before you reject it, or before you approve it, if a fire marshal looked at that site, he would gasp and say, hell no. Not only no, but hell no. Okay, it does not meet the codes, it doesn't meet the turning radiuses, and it marginally meets the hose layout. Think of that, look at it. Most things that I develop and plan for, we have to have full circumference turning. You don't have any apartments because they can go in the door, but you're approaching that 450 feet of hose turnout. Those buildings, if they go up in flames, will go up in flames totally before a fire truck can get to them. All right, and they can't turn. The turning lanes run right into parked cars. So a hose turned out. So it is a perpetual fire disaster, and any fire marshal that would approve that plan isn't worth being a fire marshal. Finally, I don't know about anything else, but one of the really weird things of doing the planning that I do, and I do industrial sites, is that every site plan, the cities and the counties are concerned, number one, with dumpsters. There's not a dumpster plan on that. There's no place to put a dumpster.
Sir,
Thank you.
your time is up. Thank you. Robert Snyder? Okay. Mr. Robert Snyder.
Good evening,
Good evening.
LPA members. My name is Robert Snyder, and I'm here to speak on behalf of the Leche Tree Nursery. As you have heard from the developer tonight, the nursery did meet with them because we have a business interest to protect. We also hired our own hydrologist, and we've sought legal counsel. It would have been short-sighted of us as a business not to do these things. I want to be very clear that at no time do we ever tell the developer or lead the developer to believe that we would support this project. In fact, we did the opposite, making it very clear that we would not. As opponents of this development, we are aware that meetings with the developer could be perceived as a quote used, "We are a good neighbor," part of the pat on the back, have we done. But the risk of this project being approved was for great business not to voice its concerns about light pollution, water usage, and signage. As a small business in the community, however, we believe that this project will create unbearable traffic on Cantor Highway, pose a risk to high school students both walking and driving to school, and will adversely affect many small businesses in Stewart and Martin County, such as optometrists, butcher shops, jewelry stores, mechanics, bakeries, liquor stores, grocery stores, and more. We are not opposed to development on the land, and we are not anti-Costco. We are opposed to changing the future land use designation and zoning. This land was designated for low-density residential in the future land use map. To put high-density apartments and a massive commercial development in this place is wrong. Thank you.
Thank you.
Hey, Joe.
Doris DePino, please.
Hi, I've lived in Stewart for 34 years. I feel like Costco would be a great asset for us. For me personally, we go to Sam's Club up in Port St. Lucie. every week, other week, something like that. I would go to Costco, but it's too far away. I'm in favor of Costco. Their wages are very good. I know a couple people who work there. One works in Costco in Arizona, one works in Palm Beach. And they rave about Costco. I would love to see it come here. We have a Walmart super center and other things. Let's welcome Costco. That's it. Thank you.
Thank you. Mrs. Robin Cartwright, please.
Good evening. It's a long walk. I hope that didn't start my 3 minutes back there.
No, you can start your 3
Okay,
minutes now.
thanks. Good afternoon. I know your job before you is not easy, but I'm here to speak against this parcel's overdevelopment and incongruence with the city's own comprehensive plan and zoning requirements. The discussion beginning tonight should not be about Costco. No one is saying Costco is or isn't a good company. None of us opposing this project have said Costco is bad, but the location is like trying to fit a square peg into a round hole. There's been so much of a push by so many that the rumor is that this project is already a done deal, and many are happy about that. I get it. The fact has been so much on Costco that many don't realize what the developer is trying to sell as part of this deal so they can make a profit. Tonight's discussion should focus on the question of, does a big box store only but 2 miles from downtown Stuart, with 18 gas pumps, 2 strip mall out parcels, and 2 restaurant pads next to a 398 gated rental complex, belong on a piece of land between Canner Highway and Willoughby Boulevard next to a public high school that's a shelter during hurricanes. In 2019, this land came before the city twice as a standalone Costco request. Twice they were not prepared, and they have since partnered with another LLC to sell the proposal of what you saw before you in tonight's presentation. If this developer truly wanted to add something of value, they wouldn't be selectively allowing for calculations based on the commercial versus residential side of a project when convenient, like when it comes to defining density, as we heard earlier, and using the total parcel versus the residential side, which is what you should do per the Land Development Code. Yet it's 2 traffic studies when convenient, but it's 1 submission and 1 huge increase in traffic. It's 1 overdevelopment of a piece of land that was approved for single-family homes. It's a parcel that was annexed to the city because the word is out that it's easier not just to get approved, but to get more while providing less. You should be asking if this plan in its totality fits with the comprehensive plan without violating and ignoring the definition of a CPUD for the city, the county, and the state. We look forward to you making the right decision by either not moving this project forward or making a recommendation of no to the City Commission.
Thank you. Ms. Jennifer Snyder. Jennifer Snyder? Is she outside? Yes. Okay, okay.
Hi, my name is Jennifer Snyder, and I live at 3001 South Canner Highway. Please, I implore all of you to do your research on this development before you make a decision. Please, take into consideration what this will do to Stuart. The location, the surrounding neighborhoods, the high school students, the downtown businesses, the small business owners, the river estuary, the evacuation routes, the area as a whole, and most importantly, the residents that live here. Ask yourself what we really have to gain from a project of this magnitude. Nothing of real value, I assure you. Is a destination shopping center and a sardine-packed apartment complex going to improve the quality of life here in Stuart? No, and absolutely not. It will create more problems for our city than benefits, especially for our fragile ecosystem. Please vote no on this. I will leave you with this quote by Kate McAllister concerning legacy cost, something you may not have considered. Every time we build a new big box store and another small business closes, we lose a piece of our community identity. We lose opportunities for stories, for adventures, for creativity, for art, for uniqueness, for nature, for learning, and for cultural development. We we lose the opportunity to teach future generations what a beautiful, sustainable, vibrant, healthy, and safe community looks and feels like. Thank you for your time.
Thank you. Mr. Tom Lloyd.
I'm Tom Lloyd. Thanks for hearing us and thanks for representing us. I just came up to say that Costco, I've been a member since 1991. I have ultimate respect for them, and I think they're a great organization. I think that this all boils down to, and I applaud the folks that have been so eloquent in their studies and presentations as to why it shouldn't be there, but I really think that we've done Costco a disservice by allowing them to go to all the expense and trouble to do the evaluation of this site. This is the wrong site. We've got plenty of sites. The Walmart out there where there's commercial properties is the right site. Maybe Port St. Lucie, where those big box stores are the right site. But this is the wrong site. Nobody has said anything about the single-family homes on the other side of Canner. Nobody's mentioned them. Nobody's addressed them. But we are going to have a quality of life that's negatively affected by that density and that use of that land. So please don't allow it.
Thank you. Ms. Lydia Snyder.
Hello, my name is Lydia Snyder, and my family owns the Lychee Tree Nursery on Canner Highway. I've grown up in the same house my whole life, but recently I haven't grown up in the same environment. Our small, simple town is changing so quickly. I remember when I was little, I would run around the woods that they were planning on developing. Half of those memorable trails have already been replaced with the Cleveland Clinic. I am not completely opposed to development, but I know it's not a perfect world and it will have to happen eventually. But when it does, I would like for it to be developed with the community in mind. They say my generation is doomed, that we are addicted to the internet, but these are the same ones that are taking away the adventure. The next generation will have no trees to climb, no river to wakeboard in, and no space to run and play. In the development plan, there's going to be an 18-pump gas station and a massive parking lot. Gas and oil will coat the ground right across the street from our river. Wawa is bad enough, and if we want our river to ever recover from the Lake Okeechobee dumpings, we need to think ahead and not implement even more toxins into our waterways. We cannot keep pushing towards becoming West Palm and Miami. There is plenty of room there for your development, and the locals would be happy to move you down there. But this is a town for true Floridians that want to keep life the way it was created. We do not need the revenue, we do not need the jobs, and we definitely do not need the traffic. Did anyone consider the kids who walk to school or the ones that take Canner to work? It is going to turn Canner into 95 at 5 o'clock on a Friday. The only escape from that mess would be to take Willoughby, but now we're going to pull that into the mess as well. Stewart is the town to retire in, the town to raise a family, the town to carry generations and pass down small businesses. Enough is enough, don't you think? When are we going to stop looking at the world through dollar signs? Is it worth destroying our community? Please take this elsewhere, because we do not want your Costco, we do not want your high-rise housing complex, and we sure as heck do not want the money here.
Thank you. Ms. Nancy Bates.
Hi, thank you for being on the board and for listening to us. My name is Nancy Bates. I reside at 195 Cabana Point Circle. No one came to our little 47 houses and talked to us. I am not against Costco. I do not drive to Port St. Lucie to big box stores. I use local retailers as much as I possibly can. I was born in South Florida. My mother was born in South Florida, and my uncle has lived here since 1958. I remember coming here as a small child. I don't like seeing the changes that have happened here. I know changes happen in towns, but I strongly agree with the folks that have spoken before me and how well they have done their homework with the numbers, etc. I wonder something as simple as, where's the garbage going to go? What do our landfills need more and more that we're doing to this wonderful little town that has been here for so many years? I agree about the students that walk along Canner Highway. I pass them in the mornings. I'm in the medical field. I don't want to see any more traffic accidents that I've witnessed constantly and had to call 911 for, of the things that I have seen happen. The car pollution, the light pollution, the noise pollution, the ruining of our environment, I just don't back it. Thank you for listening.
Thank you. Ms. Carrie Sees, please. Carrie Sees, is she outside? Is Carrie Sees here? Okay. Kelly Middleton.
Here.
Oh, okay. Are you Carrie or Kelly?
I am Kelly.
Okay.
How are you? Excuse me. Start. My name is Kelly Middleton, and I have been a Martin County resident and teacher since 1993. I am a founding member of the Stop Costco at 714 and High Meadows group, and spent 3 years of my life going to every LPA meeting, every county commissioner meeting, and every growth management meeting that had to do with Costco proposal at 714 and High Meadows. Bob, it's nice to see you again. The reason we opposed Costco at 714 and High Meadows was the fact that they planned to place their store just down the street from 3 schools. Sorry, I ran in here. On a hurricane evacuation route. We were concerned about the 25 Costco trucks, along with the other vendor trucks that would be delivering their products each and every morning, right at the start of school. We were concerned about the traffic jam that would ensue at the corner during a hurricane, when thousands of people would be lining the streets to get gas and supplies, only to block the evacuation route for those who chose to leave. Additionally, we were concerned about the Danforth Creek that runs through the property and the potential of contamination. Ironically enough, we're here again, doing this again. It's Groundhog Day. So on Canner, we have chosen a site right next to a school that is full of inexperienced drivers trying to get to school in the early morning hours, right when Costco's 25 semi-trucks and other vendor semi-trucks will be dropping off their products and then heading back out onto Canner Highway, right into the path of our teenage drivers. They have chosen a site that is on a hurricane evacuation route that could potentially have cars lining coming out of Canner and blocking that very busy intersection. They told us that the High Meadows site would only have 3,500 visitors a day, mainly Palm City residents. Yet their plans had over 7,000 parking spots. Obviously, they were telling stories. I suggest you count the parking spots that they have planned. The entire project has me scratching my head, not only because this is like Groundhog Day, same issues, same company, but the scope of the project is outlandish. Over 300 apartments. Are these homes for Costco employees? Right next to a Costco is usually not a selling feature. Close walk to the beach, yes. Near a park, yes. But right next to Costco, never heard that one before. And an 18-pump gas station right next to an 18-pump Wawa, across the street from an 18-pump Speedway, down the street from an 18-pump racetrack. Really? How many gas stations do we need in one block area? I urge Costco again to go out to US 1. I urge this LPA to start looking around at the out-of-control development in Martin County and stop thinking about the tax revenues and start focusing on what we envision Martin County to look like in the future, because I worry about the direction that it is heading.
Thank you. Brian DiVentura.
Hi, good evening. I just wanted to say, believe it or not, somewhere in the in the comprehensive growth management plan, there's a policy that says no new development shall occur inside of wetlands. Okay? This project is impacting 4.5 acres of wetlands, destroying them, gone. Okay? It's based, and that's being based on a policy delta in the comprehensive plan that says we support mitigation. So what we have here is a quagmire. Is originally the city of Stuart had valued wetlands to the extent that they said no new development shall occur. However, if a developer has a big enough checkbook, they can buy mitigation credits and impact those wetlands, fill them in fully, completely. And we can't do a darn thing about it. So, once again, the checkbook wins. If the city of Stewart had any intention to have to think that wetlands had any value for aesthetics and, you know, just the environment, we wouldn't be having this problem where the developer just writes a check for mitigation credits and South Florida Water Management District approves the permit, and here we go. We lose wetlands, some mitigation bank gets credit. There you go. Try to save our wetlands a little bit better. It can be done.
Thank you.
And the paragraph in the ordinance, I compared it to the South Florida Water Management District conceptual permit, the paragraph that discusses this, and that paragraph is not consistent with the Water Management District permit. The permit said, Water Management District permit said, the small isolated wetlands amounts to 1.05 acres, whereas, and they said, so we're not going to have you do any mitigation for those 1.05 acres. But if you read our ordinance, it sounds like the district approved all of them under that. Okay, no, the district said only those isolated wetlands were exempt from mitigation, whereas the other 4.5 acres they had to mitigate for. So anyway, we're still losing every wetland, every piece of wetland on that site.
Thank you. Ms. Sharon Storms, and next will be Michelle Riley. Sharon Storms and then Michelle Riley. Sharon Storms and Michelle Riley. Two? You got no takers? She's Michelle Riley. Oh, great.
I'm Michelle. I'm number
Fantastic.
Two, so jump in the line. Good evening, everyone. My name is Michelle Riley. I'm General Manager of Willoughby Golf Club, 375 single-family community immediately south of Indian Street off of Willoughby Boulevard. In addition, we have some management authority for Heritage Cove, 302 apartments across the other side of Willoughby Boulevard, and Willoughby Glen, another 100 single-family homes. So a total of about 800 units, many of which are 2- or 3-person units. What do we have in common? Our board of directors has actually chosen not to take a position on Costco, so isn't that refreshing for all of you this evening? We do have one thing that we can agree on, and we do have some traffic concerns. All of those units enter onto Willoughby Boulevard in one location immediately across from one another. You can see it pretty clearly if you pull up one of the earlier slides. The speed limit on Willoughby Boulevard is 45. It's a beautiful, nice, long, curvy road, which means they're doing 55, easy. So we are concerned that we're going to have some difficulty pulling out onto Willoughby Boulevard. Many of our residents are, don't tell them I said this, they're older. So that is our primary concern with the addition of Costco. We do think the traffic on Canner will cause some people to bump and run on the parallel road. We've been advocating for a traffic light. Making a left-hand turn out of Willoughby is just about impossible no matter which way you're going. So that would be on our short wish list. So we think we have some concerns. We think you can mitigate them for us. I have had a conversation with Mr. Raines, so we are in conversation, but that is something that we would like to see happen and would give us a degree of comfort should this project move forward. Thank you very much.
Thank you. Ms. Kimberly Everman and Ms. Helen McBride, please.
Good evening, LPA members and the general public. I'm Kimberly Everman. I'm the capital planner with the Martin County School District, and we want to make sure that our voice is heard on this project because we want to make sure that all of our students are safe and can access the school along the route because Costco will be our neighbor, and we want to make sure that all the surrounding areas on Canner and Willoughby are looked at. So we have a few requests that we would like to make sure get entered into the site plan, please. And first one is, we definitely want to have enhanced crossing signals at the intersections for students, walkers, because we're going to have walkers, we're going to have bike riders. We want to make sure that we have enhanced crossing signals at the intersections for those, and also a potential bus stop. Our transportation department has been looking at it, and we've got 2 locations we're looking at is possible bus stop right on Canner, but also we want to look, which is our another feature that we would like is to look at a bus stop near the roundabout located at the center. So our buses want to make sure we can get through that roundabout all the way through from Canner to Willoughby or vice versa. So I know that the folks are willing to work with us, but we want to make sure that this gets on the record, that this is what we'd like. And then the last, well, I've got 2 others. We want to make sure that at each of the intersections of Canner and Willoughby, that there's a full crosswalk designed at each curb cut, so that it's whether it's striped or enhanced, so that the students and whoever's walking will know that this is a designated crosswalk. Lastly, I want to make sure we're not looking at concurrency yet for student enrollment. That becomes part of the final site plan. We're just looking at master plan, so we want to make sure our points are heard on the site plan itself. But we want to make sure that we have a voice and are able to do concurrency analysis for when those final site plans do come in. Thank you very much.
Can I just ask real quick, have they met with you? Has the developer met with the schools?
No.
No, okay. Thank you. Ms. Helen McBride.
I'm Helen McBride. I've been a resident of the city of Stuart for 48 years, and I've seen, like a lot of you up there, I've seen a lot of growth. I'm all for Costco, and people I talk to, we're all for Costco. I hadn't seen this plan before. This is my first. The one thing, and I know I'm talking to friends up there that agree with the residents of the city of Stuart, green space. If you look at Costco's, there's no trees on that map, or the drawing there. There's no green space. They said there's 20% less space. That's one thing we, the people of the city of Stuart, and I know our commissioners, because those who know me, I go to every city commissioner meeting, we want trees. And there's no reason they can't have trees in that parking lot. So let's just make sure that, like with the school board, I agree with that, the woman that just spoke for the school system. We have to work with them for the safety of our children. Both of my children went to Martin County High School. As far as traffic, when I moved here, I can remember when John and, well, they were younger, but when they were 7 and 10, we used to ride our bikes over to the beach in the road, because we didn't have the traffic. But there's growth. I mean, just because I moved here, Bob and I moved here, I should say, with the children, you can't put up a wall. You have to have growth or you become stagnant. But it has to be proper growth, and that's what this board is for, to make sure you listen to us, the residents of the city of Stuart, and understand how we feel. And one thing I know, we feel green. We love green. Thank you.
Thank you. So before we close public comment, I just want to make sure that Carrie Sees or Shannon Storms is not here to speak since they put in a request. Are they outside? No. Okay.
Can I just add one more comment? I'm
Yes,
sorry.
the school, yes, you can.
I did not meet directly with the developer, but I did want to give credit to Mr. Raines and from Doug. They did reach out to me to let me know about the site plan, and we know that we're not into concurrency, but the developer directly. So just a slight conversation.
Okay, thank you for making that point of clarification. Okay, at this time, we will close public comment. We will take a 10-minute break. We will come back at 6:50 for board comment. Thank you. Before we move to the next phase, we do need to see if there are any public comments via Zoom this evening. Was that a no?
So I don't see anybody with their hand raised currently.
All right, and there's none like typed into the chat or anything?
We do have one who just raised their hand.
Okay.
C.A. Snyder.
Because this is the first time that comments have been shared via Zoom, do they get read to us? How do we share those?
They're normally on the speaker.
Oh, they'll speak. Okay, great.
She lowered her hand, so I don't know if she's still in class.
For anybody on Zoom, if you would like to make a public comment, now is the time to do it. Anybody? Oh, good. And can you share her name one more time?
C.A. Snyder is what she has.
C.K.? C.A. C.A. Okay. Miss C.A. Snyder?
Her time's running.
Ms. Snyder, if you'd like to give public comment, please unmute your microphone.
She unmuted again.
If she's having technical difficulty and wants to type something in the chat, we could also do that.
If I call her, can she speak?
Sure.
Who cares?
Yeah, see if you put that up to that microphone, if that works. Go ahead and see if it works.
Does it work?
It does, actually. Thank
She
you.
needs to turn her volume down. She needs to turn her volume down on her computer.
Turn your volume down on your computer, Mom. Just talk through the phone.
This is technology at its finest.
Yes, this is technology at its finest. Okay, how's that working? Is that better?
That's good. Go, Mom.
Okay. I'm Carol Ann Snyder, and I am the mother of Linda Kay and Robert. And Lydia is my granddaughter, and I'm very proud of their speaking with they feel so strongly about this development, and we don't think it ought to go through. Thank you.
Okay. Thank you very much. That will now close the public comment portion of the evening. Oh, you do have one more. Okay, we will open it back up for one more.
What they have entered as a name is just the initials MM.
MM? Okay, MM, please go forward with your comment.
No, I don't have a comment.
Oh, they don't have a comment.
I was trying to chat to let you know the people on Zoom could hear the first speaker right from the beginning.
Okay.
It was only the live audience that couldn't hear.
Okay, wonderful. Thank you very much. So we have no further comment via Zoom? Okay, we will now close the public comment portion of the evening. Mr. Raines, you may speak again to address some of the comments.
Yes, thank you. Once again, Bob Raines, on behalf of the applicant. I just wanted to clarify just a couple of comments and corrections. I know that one of the gentlemen mentioned the palm on the lychee tree nursery, and that, we would drain that down. We had, in one of the meetings we had with the lychees, both meetings, they raised that concern and question. And we came back and with our engineers and told them how we planned to make sure that that was not going to happen. They had a hydrologist available also at that meeting when we had that discussion. So that's not I just wanted to make sure everybody understood that was on our radar. It was a concern that the lychees raised, and we believe we've addressed that concern. through discussions with them and their hydrologists. The other thing I just also want to make clear is we never represented, nor did we ever believe we were going to get the lychee tree nursery people to approve our project. We understood basically right from the beginning where we stood with them, but at the same time, we still did listen to what they had to say, and we tried to address their legitimate concerns, notwithstanding the fact that we knew we weren't going to get it, because Joe made it perfectly clear we still want to try to be good neighbors, even though they don't want us for a neighbor. We're going to try the best we can. So I don't want anybody to think that we went through there and that's what we indicated. I heard mentioned a couple of times that this was designated for low-density future land use and zoning. If you look at the the City of Stuart future land use map and the zoning, you will find, and I'm sure staff can confirm it, there is no designation, land use or zoning for this property when it was annexed into the city. So where the concept came that it's supposed to be low density, or that's what it was intended to be, that is not the case. When it was annexed into the city, it was always understood that we would come forward with the land use and the zoning at that point in time, and it would be a PUD. You know, the comment that we think this is a done deal, we certainly don't believe it's a done deal, and we take this very seriously coming through here, and we listen to the people, and we certainly understand. You know, I'm a Martin County resident. Most of our staffs are Martin County residents. I also wanted to clarify, and Mrs. Middleton, it's nice to see you again, if she's still here. You know, a lot of the people, and I wanted to make a clarification on that. The Costco site in Palm City was not denied. It never moved forward. The Costco folks decided, for whatever their reasons were, not to pursue that site anymore. It never went to any commissioners or LPAs or anything at the city or at the county. Interesting enough, I did just recently get approved there, a Wawa's, a Aldi's, a Tractor Supply, a car wash, and a possible hotel site. And I only bring that up not as any kind of threat, but I think people tend to think nothing's going to happen on a piece of property. And I believe we've brought forward a project that is very good for this particular piece of property, because there's a lot of other things that could potentially happen on this property at some later date. So we believe Costco is a great benefit to the city. And so I just raised that point so that people understand that things do still happen. With respect to the school district, I'm glad Ms. Everman came back up. We did have a couple of conversations. I think we may have even sent one site plan over. Now, that's been evolving and stuff, but we certainly will work with the school district and get with them on the requests that they had, and we've worked with her in the past and happy to do so. So I was going to make that clarification, but she kindly beat me to that. So I don't think I have any other comments with respect to the public at this point in time. So thank you very much.
All right, thank you very much. I also would like to disclose, as if there are other board members, the developer did present the project to me ahead of time so that I would have knowledge to help manage this meeting. But I gave him no yes or no or anything. It was purely informational. Was any other member of the board briefed ahead of time?
I was.
I talked to Mr. Raines a number of months ago before we got any packages. I was dealing with him on another project, and so I didn't have any packages. So my concern, basically, I merely asked him, was he taking care of the people in the river park across the street?
Okay.
You know, traffic, and I told him that I'd see him here at the meeting, and I'd go over whatever else I had here with the public.
Okay.
I played phone tag.
All right, thank you very much. All right, now we will move into the board comment portion of the evening. I have a couple of things that I would like to have addressed. Number one, somebody brought up the fire marshal piece. Is that part of your package? Forgive me if I haven't reviewed it close enough, but have you done an assessment at speaking to the fire safety piece?
Yes, that's been addressed as part of our
Okay.
application process.
Okay, and everything was met the way
and
it's
we-
currently designed?
Yes, we did have some comments that came back. from the fire that we did address, and those are reflected on our current site plan.
Okay,
So we did meet with them.
okay. Regarding the units per acre of the density issue, somebody, more than one has brought up, should that be calculated project-wide, or should it be calculated for only the area that is the actual apartment and will be residential? Can you please tell us what the city, rules and regulations are regarding that?
So in this respect, we'd refer to the city's comprehensive plan, in particular, policy in element 1A7.2, which is a table of gross densities which are applied to future land uses. In this case, the future land use that the applicant wants to move forward with is special district, neighborhood district, which allows a maximum density of 15 gross. So when we calculate that, it's based on the whole site, the gross area of the site, notwithstanding the uses on that site. So in this respect, we use the 48.99 acres and the number of units, and it equates to 8.1 unit per acre.
Okay, thank you. My other concern is, as was discussed, the safety regarding the schools. With the school being in such close proximity, I just want to make sure that all plans addressed have considered the safety and security of students. That is of utmost importance.
Yeah, and to that point too, we made a presentation to the Stuart Martin Chamber, and there were a number of school administrators on there. I know Mr. Coco, I believe was his name, was on there, and he brought up some of those concerns too, and we also have already heard some of that from them at just our meeting with some of the community leaders.
Okay, but I would like an assurance from you guys that you will take and do all the things that the school would like with regards to safety and security for students.
Well, I think we're certainly going to take that into absolutely.
Okay, fantastic.
Yeah.
All right, and I may have some more as we go along, but I will open it now to the board for comment.
Okay, I'll go. Can your traffic engineer come up and just talk a little, in layman's terms as much as you can, about the actual impacts and what the connector does to the site, what traffic's going to look like peak hours, and I've heard comments about how traffic studies are calculated, and do they take into account other projects that are proposed or approved but not completed, or do they take actual traffic counts? So kind of all that, if you could.
Okay, all of that. I'm Susan O'Rourke, for the record, traffic engineer with O'Rourke Engineering and Planning. So yes, for this study, we've been studying this site for a number of years, and because of the number of places it has to be reviewed, it has to be reviewed by the FDOT, it has to be reviewed for land use, and it has to be reviewed for the specific site plan. So we are tasked with addressing the rules and regulations associated with each of those. In addition, we have to deal with the fact that we're next to a school and the issues with pedestrians and things of that nature and our on-site circulation. We actually do go out and count the cars. The county counts the roadway segments and the DOT counts the roadway segments. We count the intersections. And then you take that traffic and you add in a growth and other projects in the area. We happen to be along a corridor that has a lot of new development. We happen to work on a number of those. We compile all that traffic together along with the background growth and traffic for projects we're not aware of or that could come on in the coming years. We look at a forecast out for the long-range plan that's, out into the 2045, and for the local site planning, it's 4 or 5 years. For the DOT, we also have to look at the assessment for the need for a traffic signal. That's a very specific use where they want to look at the impact from the residential, the retail. They want to look at, in fact, it was the DOT who really encouraged us. We had kind of a driveway through the site originally where the residential, there were some limitations on who could go where. and they really wanted a more fully integrated site. That was a big task for us, not just because, the site layout and the restrictions to get a road. We felt the road had a lot of value because, as we all know, that the intersections, are busy. Canner and Monterey and Canner and Indian are both very busy, and they are timed with the DOT and the county. So the cycle links and all that, we have no control of. They're set at like 160 to 180 seconds. That's a long time if you don't get there at the right time. But the capacity on these roads, they're built with our investment to provide a certain level of traffic. On Canner Highway, it's 3,020 in an hour. We're about a third of that currently. So there's ample capacity on Canner Highway. We all know Monterey is a little bit more of a struggle. We think that this connection between Willoughby and Canner Highway, the way it's designed, it's not going to be a freeway through there. We don't want it to be, but we want it to be where we can keep our traffic out of the intersections. We also have an interconnection. It won't happen right away because the development just to the south of us is not constructed yet, but we will have a cross-access all the way to Indian Street. So as Michelle Riley was talking about impacts to Willoughby, we have a lot of ways out of our site. We worked really closely to try to disperse our traffic and give people as many different ways to get to our site so nobody was getting that big impact. We have a number of small driveways along Canner Highway that during the widening also were a concern because we have to get that signal in there that we've been planning on for years. We tried to get in with the DOT to design that when the construction came through, but we just were lagging a little bit behind. So we have worked with those neighbors as well. We are looking at, just so you know, from the school district, there, safe paths to school, the high visibility, painted signs, the crosswalks, they'll all be incorporated, as well as making sure that if we are in the school zone, coming out of the driveways, all the signage that would appear on Canner or Willoughby would also be on the driveways, so people coming out of our development are fully aware that they are entering into a school zone. And then all the crosswalks with the little arrows pointing down. The school board has asked about the flashing beacons. They have a requirement with the state, so we will have to adhere to whatever state regulations are in that regard. But certainly at the traffic signal itself, there will be a lighted crosswalk and, PED features there. So I think, did I do all of the pieces?
One follow-up. It appears there's a decel lane on Canner into this property. Is that accurate or no?
Yeah, so we have 3 driveways, and the issue with the south driveway is there are a number of very large power poles that make it cost prohibitive to put a turn lane. We actually are going to route our trucks because we have that ability, and they come around 4 in the morning, so they won't be there. The school, they'll be gone before the school traffic arrives. So we've got them routed to come in the main driveway and come up and around. And if you look at the way the gas pumps are, you can see how that would function. They will come out the south driveway. So that's how the circulation will be. The state asked us to put a 70-foot radius, which is a very large radius, to facilitate vehicles turning quickly into that and not causing a backup onto Canner Highway.
Okay, so the site plan, it looks like that's a decel lane. Is that not a decel lane?
There's a decel lane on the middle driveway and the northern driveway, but not the southern driveway.
Okay, north.
Can I jump in?
Yeah.
Right, okay. When you go along, when the trucks, I suppose, are coming along the south side and they're coming up and they're unloading at the east side of the building, is that correct?
Correct.
So how is that, where are the loading docks there? And
I'm going to let Doug or, I believe we have a whole truck, we have a whole series of truck turning template
oh, good.
Figures.
Hi, Doug Brookbank with MG2. We're Costco's architect. And I think the question was just around the loading or how the trucks, where they do it specifically
Yes.
against the building. So where I'm pointing right now is where the loading dock area is.
Okay.
So the truck, and that circle represents a turning radius. So they would be able to, make their movements in that circle back into the building there, and then pull straight forward and leave.
And so are you planning to have them leave on the south side again?
I was speaking strictly about the fuel pumps, but they can go from the south side or the middle driveway. All of the driveways are designed, and because the deliveries are coming in the middle of the night, we have ensured that there's a truck ability throughout the site. But the intention is they exit back to Cantor Highway.
Okay, so not to Willoughby. And then
Correct.
the next question is the compactors I saw back there? Okay, so the compactors are giant trash compactors? Is that what they are?
Right, so on the side of the building, which would be, I'm pointing to the east, right here, or there'll be two of them. And the garbage is collected inside the building.
Okay.
They push it through a chute that from inside into these are self-contained. These are not traditional dumpsters, but they're self-contained or enclosed units. And then the same thing like with the delivery truck, a truck will pull down, back in. There's two of them so they can grab one at a time. They'll grab one that's full. There'll be another one there, and then they'll be able to come back and drop another one. So those drops will occur periodically through the week, just depending on the volume of trash.
Okay, so my concern is, and since you're the architect, you would know this, is that right to the east of that is a single-family 5-acre home. So how, and there's a 25 buffer, there's only a 25-foot buffer between the trash compactors and that home. So I'm just, of all the places to put that, that seems to be the most delicate one to put it, right? Because to the south of, you have, I suppose there's going to be a development there soon, and by the gas pumps would be a good idea. You know what I mean? I don't know. It just seems like a very invasive place to put those things.
So for the operations inside, the compactor is not used continually, and the noise is more inside when it goes into the chute.
Okay.
It's just that moment when that truck will come. It's a flatbed truck. It'll back in and it will pull and grab
it'll be
that.
going beep, beep,
and
beep at
and
4 in the morning.
They're honestly, they do it pretty quickly. So it's kind of, back in, grab it, and then they're kind of off on their way. They obviously secure it to the back of the truck, and then there's another one there. So it's only one truck pulling one at a time. But all the activity of sort of the trash happens inside the building, and it's not sort of a continual operation that's happening where you're hearing that compactor.
Did you consider in this site plan, did you consider putting the retail space, the building itself, farther down, surrounded by parking, so that the parking itself became a buffer around, do you see what I mean? Like, you have all this parking on the north of it. Do you know what I mean? Like separating that parking
Sure.
so that you could use the parking as a buffer between the single-family home and that.
Great question. I mean, unlike some sort of centers that would have multiple tenants, this is one tenant.
Right.
And the main entrance where everybody goes in and out of, this is not a building that's accessed from different locations. So there's one point of entry here. So the idea is to really equalize that parking to that front door. Everybody wants to grab a good parking space. So the design is actually engineered that way to capitalize on everybody sort of getting as good a space as possible. So we really do avoid putting the parking over there, as we don't want people walking past the loading dock and on sort of that more quiet side of the building, as it's not accessed by the public.
How often do you expect that parking lot to be full, like to capacity? I mean, is that something that regularly happens at the Costco's?
Well, I think the traffic engineer can probably talk a little bit more to those trips. Obviously, at peak, Christmas and holidays, you're going to have it more full than other times.
Yeah.
So that might just be something that the traffic engineer can speak a little bit to.
I think those are all my traffic questions. Or,
I have a traffic question also.
Yes, ma'am.
So, in looking at the roundabout, the distance of the roundabout from Kenner Highway, was any evaluation done to determine, because the roundabout is so early, does it cause a backup while people are trying to maneuver the roundabout?
Right, that's a good question. Now, we have evaluated that with the DOT, and that's why the first entrance is pulled back. We have a minimum, we evaluate the internal circulation as well as the traffic going in the other direction to make sure that neither of them will conflict. But we think the roundabout is important. It should be free-flowing. We've designed it, and I say we, I mean the team has designed it, so that it is free-flowing but controlling, and we don't create conflicts that would cause a backup into the intersection.
Yes, so I love roundabouts, but I was just wondering about it, if it was further in on the road so the traffic will have more space before they start to maneuver, just so that more could get off of Kenner Highway sooner, because I noticed.
Yeah, what is our distance? We're a pretty good distance, 400, 500, 600 feet from the, yeah, we don't anticipate, the primary purpose on this road is to provide access without having a series of intersections that would cause backups. So we want to have it in a location that's facilitating as much of the parking as possible. So, but we have, in regard to what you're saying, that's why it is in the location. It's not at the first intersection, it's at the second, so.
Thank you.
Support that, okay.
You had stated that the Canner Highway is currently at 1/3 of the potential usage, I believe.
I think that's what I said, yes. I want to say, yeah, let me just give you the number so I don't, so the current number, the peak directional number, and this is according to the Martin County Roadway Level of Service Report, is 993 with a capacity of 3,020. And that's one side, one direction. So, traffic tends to go in one direction in the morning and another direction in the afternoon. And then throughout the day, it might be less. So this is the peak hour as determined by the county, and it's at current level of service C.
Okay, and then do you have any estimate that when you add now the new traffic from this, is it gonna, how much would that 1/3 go up, do you
Okay,
estimate?
so the actual number, I'm just going to give it to you so I don't, yep. So that same number in the future is, we go up to, let's see, we add several hundred, but the growth, we are at 184, 1140.
1140.
So
More or total?
that's the total.
Okay.
What is it now?
And right now, it's 993.
Okay. All right, thank you. Does anyone else have any more questions for the traffic engineer? No.
I have connectivity questions, but they're not car related. Are they still directed to you or? No.
Depends what they are. You say not correlated, I'm not sure.
Okay. Would you like?
Okay, yeah, so I have quite a few questions and comments, apologies, but now's the time to get into the weeds.
Okay.
So first of all, I want to say for everybody that thinks that this is a no-brainer in one direction or the other, I envy you. It is it's certainly not a done deal in my head, let's put it that way. So yeah, I do have some sort of bigger picture concerns and questions, and then I also have some very small things that I want to get through. So I've tried to do it by category. So let's start with the housing. I think we could maybe start with not having a gate. That seems like something we could all agree on, that while there was a housing shortage in the city of Stuart, we are improving our stocks. And I certainly don't think that there is a shortage of luxury apartments. That, to me, is not something that we need more of. So I feel very strongly that the first thing should be to get rid of that gate. Number two is affordability. I think that if we're going to have these, what I would consider to be uninspired 4-story apartments, let's at least set 10% aside for affordable housing. We don't need more luxury housing. We desperately need more affordable housing. I'm gathering that that's not going to happen. So if we can't agree to that, can we at least have varied housing stock?
this could be the opportunity. I mean, we've seen some pretty cool, innovative projects come before us in regards to creating a neighborhood feel. In my opinion, this does not create a neighborhood feel. But if we had a mixed stock, maybe some single-family cottages, some, condos, townhouses, that to me, while we might not be solving the affordability issue, at least we are like actually creating a neighborhood, because it just doesn't feel to me like a viable place to have 400 luxury apartments across from a Costco. But also, I think, as many people have said, it doesn't fit the character of our town.
Jackie, can I jump in there with you on that housing?
Yes.
Because that's a pet peeve for me also, and we need to move away from, when you talk about affordable housing, everyone's thinking low quality. Well, we have some of the best school district and the best education here in Martin County, and I would love to see us have such creativity in our housing that my son, who was educated here in Martin County, would want to move back home. My son was born in Martin Hospital, went to Martin County High School, and went to university in Jacksonville, and he's telling me, what would I come back to Stewart for? So guys, as we are post-COVID, and we need to start thinking more creatively and look at what just happened during COVID. We still have time to evaluate these housing and afford our well-educated children to have something to come back to Martin County for. So let us move away from thinking that affordable housing means low quality. We're talking about housing for our young, educated children who really want to stay here in Martin County.
And if I can also just chime in as we're going
Yes.
along this line, I should mention that in 2019, the Florida legislature passed an inclusive housing ordinance that said in the event that a county or municipality were to mandate inclusive housing as part of a development condition, that the municipality is responsible to essentially compensate for the provide incentives to fully offset all costs to the developer of the housing contribution. So if we say that, then the calculation would be necessary for the city to sit down and figure out how much less rent the developer is going to receive and then pay him for it.
But, excuse me, but at the same time, we're under no responsibility to accept it because it's a zoning change.
I'm not saying that, but I'm
Okay.
just telling you that the state statute says that if you conditionalize it on the affordable housing, that the incentive statute applies. I
Okay.
agree, there's no mandate that you approve anything.
Okay.
I don't disagree. I just want to be clear that everybody understands that there's kind of a dance there that has to take place.
So I certainly wouldn't want to conditionalize anything, but I would certainly like to see an applicant come forward with an affordable housing plan, or at least varied housing stock. Okay, so that's number one, is the housing. Number two is this tree mitigation situation. So I see that you are asking for a $500,000 reduction in the fees because of the dry retention ponds that you will be putting in. So a lot of questions. Number one, I feel like South Florida Water Management District is requiring a certain level of dry retention ponds. Is that correct?
Well, let me just back up because I think I kind of see where you're going with this. So we're proposing as part of our plan that we believe we can do a tree mitigation through that. But if you look at the ordinance that's in there right now, the condition that's in the ordinance, we're only proposing that as an alternative for tree mitigation. That will be determined at construction level plan. We're at master site plan. So the ordinance is very clear. It says we're proposing to do that. And then, so at that point in time, we'll determine whether we qualify for those or not. We're not at that level here.
Okay, all right. But currently, your plan for water management is dry retention ponds, or which are sort of like depressed grass swales?
I have to go with my engineer there.
Evening. I'm David Bagg with the EDC in Port St. Lucie. You're on track. It's a mix. So we've got a mix of wet detention lakes. We've got a mix of dry retention. The district will require half-inch of dry pretreatment for the commercial areas. So the commercial, what you don't see there on that particular site plan, there's going to likely be exfiltration underneath that. All mixes of stormwater treatment types that we've prioritized to get the higher level of nutrient removals.
Okay, cool. Great. So that, well, I think it's certainly a good step. There are more innovative solutions like rain gardens, for example, that would actually put more trees back on the property. I think my general concern here is that we are taking away some of the oldest and closest forest, old Florida forest and wetlands that we have. And so that needs to be accounted for. That can't be an easy thing that we just say, oh, well, we lost a bunch of wetlands. Like, we need to then really make up for that. And I think that that means, either finding a way to get more native trees on this property or paying the city so that we can put trees elsewhere around the city to make up for it. So that's a concern for me. The next thing that I'd like to talk about is connectivity. So I want to start with this connector road. Now, the way that it is right now, it seems to me that it's 2 lanes, there's a 6-foot sidewalk, there's no shade plantings, and there's no bicycle lanes. So for me, I would call that less of a connector road and more of a fancy driveway that leads to a gated community. I'm pretty sure the MPO is now encouraging at least 8-foot wide sidewalks on both sides of the streets. And I think that we're pretty close to a future in which we really need to have bike lanes on all roads. So I would say if we want this to actually be functional, we need to build it for a future that involves pedestrian and cycling use. Along those lines, it seems like the connectivity of the sidewalks is a little wonky. I know I couldn't quite tell on the back of the site plan, but it seems like the sidewalk just kind of dead ends into that transition landscape buffer zone. Is it connecting to the sidewalk on Willoughby? I was looking at I think the engineering plan, not this. I don't think it's as detailed here, but.
Oh, okay. We'll look at that and make sure that it does connect. But the intent is to get the pedestrians to Willoughby. I would like to also clarify this. We do have a sidewalk running along the northern side of the property, which you identified, but it is 8 feet wide.
Okay.
We have had discussions with Joe, and we'd like to see if we can widen it to 10 feet to even be more of a multimodal path. I think that would be great for bicyclists and pedestrians. So we're looking at that right now with our civil engineers to make sure that we can get the side slopes and things like that to work.
Cool. Okay.
Yep.
Okay, well, I hope that you try real hard. So then also, I think that in the back, we do have a pretty lovely sidewalk that the county maintains that is separated from the road by a large landscape buffer. We don't have that on the Canner Highway side. The sidewalk is right next to the road, quite dangerous as somebody who cycles on that street. And I think now would be a great opportunity for us to right that wrong and put in a sidewalk that is actually usable, that's separated from the road by landscape. So I hope that's something that you'll consider being able to do, is improve the connectivity that we currently have. Along those lines of connectivity, we don't have any Marty shelters on this plan, but isn't it required that based on a certain number of parking spaces that we do need to have shelters for public transit?
I'm not aware of that. Is that a county requirement, perhaps?
Yeah, I thought it was in city, but I could certainly be wrong. But
Jackie, we will reach out to the county transit system. That was brought up to us at the Chamber of Commerce, and we agreed to take a look at that and make sure that we incorporate that as well as looking at the bus stop for the school.
That would be great. I just feel really strongly, I think that traffic is a concern, but I think the way to solve that is to promote cycling and walking and use of public transit. So I think we could hopefully do that with this. And then my last question is mostly just for staff. I am hoping, so I understand that I'm a member of Costco. I go 2 or 3 times a month. I am a small business owner, and my small business, like many people, my small business is powered by Costco. So selfishly, I would like to be able to have the Costco closer, but I'd also like those tax dollars to come here to my home, because tax dollars aren't just money in your pockets, they're police and fire and amenities. And so I see the potential for a lot of ad valorem taxes and sales taxes that are going to make our city a lot more livable, as long as the books balance. So my question is, are we looking at potential reduction in impact fees, this tree mitigation scheme? Is it going to balance out so that the taxes that we're receiving are really worth this extremely high impact development?
So you've got two levels of taxation that will be generated from this development. You've got the taxes that are paid to pay for the development, actually its infrastructure and its impact at that moment. And looking at that, yes, we have a proposal from the applicant to look at various ways to improve the stormwater quality, which would give them some credits. We're also looking at the intermodal, the connectivity, and whether or not there's defrayment of some impact fees to encourage them to put in sidewalks or connectivity as state statute allows that. So you've got that primary level of impact. The long-term and residual impact of taxation is the ad valorem. And I don't have that calculation at hand at the moment, but that is likely a significant annual return for the city in terms of its revenues. And that is then used in the general budget to pay for services.
And Ms. Vitale, I might just add, to your point, we've already been in contact with the property appraiser's office, and we're asking them to help us get an estimate of what they think that will be. Unfortunately, we didn't have it for tonight, but we certainly hope and plan to have it by the city commission meeting. So I can tell you that we should have that at that point in time. And I even spoke with them as early as today, recently as today, excuse me.
That's all I have. I hope that as a board we'll be able to continue the conversation about the housing and about the landscaping and water retention, tree mitigation.
Okay. Ryan?
Okay, there was a comment, this would be a Bob question. I'll let him. There was a question about unified control. Can you address that, Bob?
Yeah, well, we have all the properties under contract, and the unified control will be a part of the project when we come forward. I mean, so that will be addressed.
The
It will be
roadway
under
will
uniform.
be-
Mr. Marino is going to own all the properties.
Okay.
And he's going to continue to own them and manage them.
And so that roadway will be owned and
Yes.
then maintained by the
The-
project?
The roadway will be open to the public, but it will be privately maintained.
Okay.
And again, this is a unified project. He's going to own the apartments, he's going to own the Costco building, and he's going to continue for the foreseeable future anyway to manage it. Is that a fair statement, Joe?
Okay.
And I also like to point out on the traffic too, one thing, that Costco, with respect to the schools, and this was an interesting thing with Palm City, I think they opened at 10 o'clock, Mark? Where's Mark? There he is. 10 o'clock, is that in the morning? So the Wawa's in Palm City is going to be 24 hours. Just an interesting tidbit.
So, and this is a unique CPUD for us in that there is this mix of uses. So, and this has been brought up before, and it is a concern or something to discuss, but take the residential area, 14 whatever acres, but then you take the density based on the overall site. If I was going to look at that residential project, I could never get that density in that area. Same for the Costco if you look at the floor area ratio. On here it's 0.09. If you take into account that Costco site area, it's 0.21. So I feel like there's a density benefit massively by counting the whole project, especially for the residential section. That's a concern of mine. I don't necessarily mind the fact that it's 4 stories in this location. I think there's a lot of locations where there are 4 stories where it's not a good location. I don't mind the height of 4 stories. I'm just not totally comfortable with how this density analysis is calculated. So can you just,
Yeah, I think I made this statement earlier, but just to consolidate that, when we change the future land use to a use and the site is in unified control, so it is one single site, the comprehensive plan makes it clear that we use the gross area of that site. We've used, recommended actually, with discussion from the applicant, a special neighborhood district future land use, which one restricts the density on that to 15 units per acre, because we're calculating it as a whole. So they're not getting the benefit of being able to go to 30 units per acre on this property. The comprehensive plan then makes clear that the calculation is based on the gross of that future land use.
okay.
So bifurcating it into residential and commercial, you're starting to use the net calculations,
Right.
which is, it doesn't compare, it's not a comparable way, a methodology or mathematical calculation to deal with it in separation. I can understand the confusion
Right.
between that. What we're looking at is the comprehensive plan description of gross density, gross
Okay.
area.
Okay.
Yeah.
Regarding landscaping, condition number 30, it mentions that landscaping of the project shall include low-volume drip irrigation, drought-tolerant vegetation, and 50% or more of native plant materials. And then on conditions 33 and 34, it talks about open space, and then it also talks about total development of native vegetation area. So it talks about open space not less than 25%, and then it talks about 25%, not less than 25% of native vegetation area. And then in the native vegetation requirements, it explains that the provided native landscape area is 25.7% of the total area. And I think it's either staff or Doug. Okay. Can you clarify open space, native vegetation areas, and then also talk about the buffers and how the buffer calculations are different in this case than if that residential piece was an RPUD and where it would be?
So for that, we'd like to ask the applicant who's run these calculations and developed the methodology to address these conditions. Yeah.
Hello, Doug Fitzwater with Lucido and Associates. Yes, we are providing 25% native vegetation area on site. So all of that native area will be in native plantings. The open space is also all of the area that was part of the native vegetation is included as part of our open space.
Okay. Oh, I was going to ask, the retail parking calcs, I thought was 1 to 200 square feet. Is it 1 to 250?
Medical is 1 to 200, that's more restrictive. The 1 to 250 is.
Is retail strip is 1 to 250?
Closer to retail, yes.
Okay. I'm personally supportive of the Costco. I'm not overall sold on the entire development. I'm supportive of the Costco. I think, again, there are benefits and certainly things that are going to impact this area greatly. It's more the rest of the project that has me a little concerned.
Can you actually, speaking of which, can you review the overall economic impact once again, like how many jobs will be brought to the area? We brought up the tax issue. Okay, so that doesn't tell me what I'm asking.
Good evening.
thank you for hearing me out.
And state your name and where you're from.
I'm Mark Mann, the warehouse manager for Costco in Palm Beach County.
Okay.
As far as the amount of new employees we would hire from Martin County, it would be about 75% of the total employee base. So somewhere in the neighborhood of about 150 new jobs for Martin County. I hope that answers your question.
Now, how do you get that 75% calculation?
Well, we would normally, as far as transfers within a company, would be around 40 to 60
Okay.
individuals coming in from outside,
Okay.
and then the rest would come from the community.
Now, how do you ascertain those individuals? Do you hold job fairs? What do you?
We would do job fairs at
Okay.
the site. Yes, ma'am.
Thank you.
Okay, so one of the concerns I heard several residents brought up was, do we need more gas stations? I mean, the Costco store is one thing, but can you say, was an analysis done and determined that did we need more gas stations? Because I know I'm a Costco shopper myself, and there are several Costcos that I've shopped at that does not have gas station. And, you know, that really brings a whole different dynamics, putting in gas stations. So can someone address that?
Hi, Doug Brookbank again with MG2. Yeah, so a couple things to note that maybe are obvious, but it's a membership club. The fuel facility is really seen as an ancillary business to that membership club. So a little bit unlike maybe other fuel facilities that are out there that are open until midnight or longer hours, this one is a membership club. This would be the case here. They're not open as late as those other facilities, and it really is seen as just like when you go inside the warehouse, there's a pharmacy, there's you know, the food service, there's all the ancillary business, optical inside. So they do treat it that way as part of sort of their operations and their program, you know, as a retailer. So that's how they view it.
So you do have other clubs that do not have gas stations, is that correct?
There are some locations that do not. Where they can, they've been putting them in for that reason, in that it is seen as an ancillary service or business to that member, providing them that good price on the gasoline.
Yes, and I do understand that, but in terms of the need for it, in terms of whatever hazard it brings to the area, is it justifiable, is what I'm trying to ask.
It is something that they have at most of their locations. There's probably only a few that don't have it now. You know, it's just something that the members have seen as a value added for that membership. I can tell you from having done Costco's for over 20 years that their fuel facility program, the design of it, the care of it is top notch. I mean, even the fuel that you buy at the facility is of the highest grade. So if you know Costco, they do things, you know, really well. They want to be known as the industry leader, and with their fuel facilities, they do that. They also don't, you know, to the point, they don't have a mini mart out there. They don't sell any product at the fuel facility. It is just the gasoline, again, as sort of that extended value to the member.
Thank you.
And is 18 the typical set number?
It is.
Okay.
Yep.
Okay, I have landscaping questions.
Yes.
Okay, Doug. I'm concerned about that 25% also, and the need to maintain it at 25% of natives.
Christina, can you speak into the mic, please? Can you speak into the mic? Sorry, I can't hear you.
Doug, I'm concerned about that 25% being native. Like, it seems to me like you'd want much more like 50%
Yeah,
on this
there's
site.
no problem. We're trying to reach 75, 100% native on this site or more.
Great.
I mean, at 100, I'm just saying in that native vegetation requirement that we're doing, we're 100% native in that case.
Okay,
Yeah,
so then the
yeah,
rest will be
absolutely.
like way
No,
more,
no,
right?
it's-
Because I
It's
would,
industry standard now to stay as native as possible because there's cost savings for irrigation, less pests. It's a good thing. So
Okay.
we try to promote that.
don't go away because I'm really concerned with that parking lot. There is no shade, and the only thing we know is that we're going to get hotter. We're not getting cooler.
Right.
We need shade trees, and we need to find a way that you can put them all along there in between the two strips. We have lots of good parking lots and ways to design them. If you have to have less parking, you know what?
Yeah, we were talking about that, Joe and I were talking about that earlier in the meeting. We're going to look at possibly adding tree diamonds throughout the parking area to add additional palm trees and trees.
We need
We're trying to
shade
come up with
trees,
some-
no palm trees, no more palm trees, okay?
Okay.
We need shade trees, oak trees that are gonna bug you in 50 years, I know. They're gonna crack the cement, it's gonna be okay. We'll go with the cracked cements, right? So we need to
we're gonna
make
look at
that
that,
happen,
yes.
right? We cannot pretend that palm trees are shade trees,
Right.
okay? All right, so then the next thing, okay, I'm still with you here.
Yeah.
Okay, when you have that very big thing over there on the end, and then all of this parking down here, and then you have this big, long lake that is like a rectangle.
This one?
Yes, that
Yes.
one. And it is 25 feet there?
25 feet?
You can't put a bridge across it, you can't put a bridge.
79 feet.
What is it?
79
feet deep?
No.
No, wide.
Wide.
Okay, so why can't we have that nice bridge that we were talking about in your paperwork? There was talk in the paperwork about putting a bridge across it, but it was too deep.
Yeah, that was the issue with our engineer, so, David can address that for us.
Yeah, the depth, we want to maximize that depth because the actual nitrogen and phosphorus removal in a wet detention lake like that happens in the permanent pool volume, the volume of water below the normal water level in the lake. So maximizing that is actually a benefit to the stormwater flow.
So doesn't that shape of that lake not help you maximize that? I mean, that is a rectangle. So as far as I understand about water and the use of plants and cleaning up that water, having that rectangle is going to be your worst enemy, right?
Right, so, well, not necessarily, because the district and any other, drainage districts, drainage engineering in general, you don't want to promote short circuiting. You want that stormwater to flow through the system. So long rectangular lakes, as long as they meet the dimensional criteria of the district, actually provide that benefit. We're planning a littoral shelf around all of the lakes.
Okay.
Above and beyond code requirements.
So as far as I thought that we've been trying to get away from those rectangles, right? And trying to provide areas, if this is all we're going to have in wetlands, I think that what we need to do is provide things that are visually beautiful to look at, right? So, or at least in a natural way, right? So if you're making a rectangle that is, I don't know how many feet that is, maybe 400 feet long, along the road there, along the main entrance, that one long lake on the left there, sort of to the north of the roadway, how long is that lake?
I don't have the exact length committed to memory right now.
But it has to be, what, 300 feet?
It's longer than that.
Longer than that? So it's one line of, it's one rectangle of lake. You know what I mean? We've seen this all our lives. We need something that's going to make it that's going to, when people get there.
There is a biodetention area in the north end of it, that lobe up on the,
Which
sorry,
looks to me like it's about 30 feet.
no.
No?
No. So the lake banks alone are 20 feet. So see if you move the mouse over, I don't have a pointer.
If you hold the pointer, it's got a green button on it. Okay.
So this area right here
Yes.
is a dedicated biodetention area. That is going to be planted with native vegetation. It's going to be more akin to a natural wetland. So that will be all planted out. Just for scale, this bank right here where
Yeah.
about the width of the laser is 20 feet. So this area well exceeds 30 feet like you were saying.
Okay, and then, so if that's 20 feet, then the length of the lake must be, what, like 500 feet?
fairly long. I just don't have the exact number.
Okay. I think that those lakes and the retention pond at the bottom and the one up at the top, I think they could use a lot of help. Like they really need to be addressed, and so that when we are driving by it and looking at it, that it is something that is beautiful and worth having, instead of just another retention pond that, I think we need to go beyond that. Okay. Okay, my next one is that huge, long, many, many, many feet of building that is going to act as a fence. Right there, all of that to the left, all of those buildings, all of the apartments are one long line. There's not going to be a raccoon that gets across there. There's not going to be a lizard that gets across there. Something has to happen to those buildings, right? That it isn't just one straight line of concrete where nothing can get through. You've got to, it seems to me like you need to create places for people to walk or animals to get through instead of just one. I mean, how many feet is that building? Does anyone have an answer for that one? Like, how long is the building on the north side?
428 is the one on the northwest.
It's 428 feet?
428 that way.
So there's 428 running feet of concrete block from the, if not, it's got to be more though, no?
Doug Fitzwater again.
That's the one building.
We have access going through here. We have pedestrian accesses through the building as well. Our clubhouse is going to be located here, so the pedestrians will be able to go into the clubhouse and enter the pool area. We have a sidewalk that runs around the perimeter of this property as well for pedestrian access.
But essentially you have a mass of concrete that runs from the top to the bottom, right? Isn't the concrete the gray, or is it the parking?
This is the parking area here.
Okay, and then the yellow is the gray.
yellow
Sorry,
is the
I'm having a hard
buildings.
time. Okay, so that building is what? That's 400, 300 feet?
268 feet from what it looks like for this one here.
Is that a vegetation break in the middle? Because I think it's hard to
Yes,
decipher right
yes,
there.
This is a vegetation break in here, yes.
With what, a road or what have we got?
Sidewalk, and we have vegetation in here, and then also up against this building, we have our bios, littoral planting here that David had just mentioned. And this is one building, this is
So
a
it's
building.
two separate buildings,
Right,
it's
there's
just
a
that it
total
looks
of
like it.
4 buildings, yes. So 1, 2, 3, 4.
Yeah. Thank you.
Does anybody have any other questions?
I got a couple.
Yes.
I got a couple questions, probably Bob could answer them. My understanding is we're having a public roadway use, but privately maintained, correct?
Yes.
All right. Are you going to plat it or easement it, or how are you going to?
I think at some point there may be a desire to plat it, but, so we will at some point probably do that.
Yeah, because I think the city needs to look at that with you at least.
Sure.
The plan
Yeah.
on it. And that.
We're not required to plat it because it's going to be under.
No, but I'm saying you've
but
either
there still
gotta-
may be, it may be desirable to plat it for certain
Yeah,
reasons. Yes,
plat
sir.
or easement, but
Right.
there'll be something there that you use as the
Correct, yes,
transfer of
sir.
rights, right?
Yes, sir.
Okay. The other thing too is, you need to have the engineers and stuff early as possible to start looking at where their main lines are going with the utilities with the city of Stewart.
Mhm.
Because there's a break where it's gonna be city-owned.
Right.
And that's gonna have to be easemented out, and then everything else is gonna be private. So you gotta do that while you're looking at how you're gonna transfer with the roadway and stuff, because that's gonna catch you down the line, okay? And,
Maybe I'll let David touch on that.
Thanks, Bill. Yeah, so we've had a lot of coordination with Mark Rogolino and the guys over in the utilities department. Because we have such good coverage with water mains around the property. There's one on the east,
Right.
south, and north, and we're going to be doing an extension along Canner. We'll be covered there. It's their prerogative to have private services to all those, so they have to own, don't have to turn over as many public mains to them.
So they're going to bring in a public main, and you're going to meter each building?
So the residential will probably be master metered off of Willoughby. There's a main along the north
Okay.
property boundary there. Costco will tie off the main along the southern boundary. The retail uses will all have that main that we're going to install
All
on
right.
Canner.
How about the fire? Is that going to be common with the utility?
No,
and
so,
service?
so they didn't want to accept, they did not want to accept that line either. So what we're going to be doing is running a fire loop through the property
Okay,
with
so
check
you're-
valves between Willoughby and Canner.
All right, so you're running two separate systems, right?
That's right.
Yeah, that's what I say, but make sure you guys get up with the easements and stuff.
Yep.
Because.
We're trying to
uh,
reduce those as much as possible. The only public infrastructure for utilities that we're turning over is next to the south driveway. We're building the city of lift station.
Right.
All the gravity main up to the lift station will be ours under ownership of
Right.
the developer. The station, however, will be turned over. And they
Okay.
condition that on putting it next to Canner Highway.
Right, and like I say, that's all these easements.
Yep.
And you've worked with Matt before, right?
Absolutely.
The fire inspector, he doesn't care how big Costo is.
Nope.
So we don't have to worry about making sure there's fire protection.
Yeah,
He does his job very well, so.
He's reviewed it. He gave us a lot of great comments regarding hydrant spacing, hose runs around the residential buildings,
Right.
spacing on hydrants, FDCs, and we incorporated those.
Okay. So that's what I say about my main concern is if you don't get that squared away early, it will mess you up down the line. Then the city has problems because, easements and everything else. My other question was, in the documents, and I think, Kevin, I saw the point when it comes to the roadway, that the road in the first phase counts as the requirement for meeting your first phase.
Yeah, the road will be built as part of.
Phase one.
Well, we don't really have a phase project, but the road will go in at the same time the Costco is going in.
Okay, so the road counts,
It'd be at the first.
okay,
right
so
up
but that
front.
counts that's your first benchmark, right, to meet your PUD obligations?
Yes.
Okay,
If you're asking when we do that, because we're going to make quite an investment
correct,
in that
okay. And
particular.
So I think the city needs to make sure that's clear, so it's not, as long as they're clear to it and it's in the documents, then you're fine.
Yeah, we spent a number of hours with the applicant to ensure that this was locked down, that, everybody was aware that this was required up front.
That's what I say, just,
Yep.
everybody will forget this in a year and a half from now. The other thing, Bob, is the light, is the light part of that roadway phase?
The signal?
Yes.
I'll have to defer to Susan on that. I believe it is, but I'm not going to be the one to answer that.
We have, we're going to get the signal in as quickly as we can. We're going to be at the mercy of the DOT, but we've already submitted preliminary plans with them that are under review. And then as soon as we can get it approved, when this project is approved, the light will go. I think we'll have the light in at the same time. If not,
Well, then, I think Kevin and them, what we can do is you can condition the first, temporary, CO, right? With the light being in at the time you issue the first CO, right? Yes. So the road can be constructed, you don't need the light with nothing down there, right? So, okay. And the only other thing, we always bring up something about MARTA that keeps stopping in the middle of the roadways and clogging traffic, right? And we keep wanting to have a bus stop or something to get them off the road. I'm not sure, but I think we were explained that there's conditions that they will go inside of a private property and there's conditions they won't. So if you guys could please, see if you can get that thing off of 76, talking about a traffic jam, so they can get in and they're happy, and whatever those conditions are, that would be, I would think, would be a major improvement, because,
And I think that was one of the benefits that was going to come with the school District 2, because I know they don't go in gated communities and they do it, but this road will, I think, give us an opportunity.
Yeah.
And I think that's one of the things that we heard from Kimberly.
Yeah,
And from Mr. Coca, I think he also mentioned that too.
Yeah, I'd say that's always been a board issue, and we've always not been able to do it because it was private property.
Right.
Okay. I think I heard, I had other questions that you guys have already answered. I can't think of anything else. I did write notes for once. I don't think I have any other questions, and I think just the last one is Willoughby's intersection, that's non-lighted, correct?
Correct.
Okay. Outside that, I think I'm done.
I got one more thing. I know there was a comment by the school district member that they don't look at concurrency until final site plan.
Correct.
So this is CPUD, zoning, land use, and master. Right. So they'll need to come back for final site plan to this board?
No.
No.
Yeah, that goes to site.
Right.
Goes to
Construction plans.
Okay, so not final site plan. Do you know what I mean? We typically review final site plan. We review master, but we also review final. So is there just a difference in wording?
Yeah, well, the process is what you're seeing now is you will normally provide a move to commission based on the CPUD and what we, in this case, has been called the master plan, but that's the stage that you would be. Once that had gone through commission, if it does get approved, then it goes into site planning through the building permit, where we don't run site plans like the county runs site.
So when do they get concurrency?
Prior.
At the construction plan.
At construction plans, they'll.
Right.
Yeah.
And understand, and Kimberly can correct me if I'm wrong, but, there'll be an analysis done at that point in time. And I've dealt with this with her and some other projects and stuff. Then there may be, depending upon what it shows at that particular time, there may be a need for us to pay some kind of student station fees or whatnot in that respect. But the project's not going to get approved because we don't meet a school capacity, if I'm stating that correctly. And that's what we've dealt with on other projects where, okay, there was a capacity issue at this particular place. We had to pay student station fees, which we paid up front.
Right.
And then it gets, but there are some
I've
things
just
with respect to it.
typically
So,
seen that at this stage, that we know that information at this stage in the
don't
past.
think- Well, I can't speak for that, but it should not be a master site plan.
Okay.
Anyone else?
I would hope that we could continue a conversation about the housing. Maybe I'm the only one that's concerned about that, and if I am, that's okay. But are we all good with 400 luxury apartments in a gated community? Is that what we want?
Does anybody have a comment about that?
If you don't mind, I think the project ought to look at, maybe volunteering a few units where you're under the 100% ratio for average, salaries and stuff. I'm not exactly sure what it is, but I know that is a ratio that, others are aware of when you rent, right? So, it's probably worth you considering to reduce some of that to help the local, more or less of a workforce housing rent on a portion of it.
But Bill, the problem with that is what Mike mentioned, that if that's a development condition, then the city is responsible for making up that delta with the developer.
No, it's the volunteer.
By the way, there's a distinction.
So
I don't know what it is. We haven't gotten sued for it yet, so we'll see.
Yeah. So that would be my suggestion.
If I can just interject on that, my only issue with the mandating, and I know you said volunteering, I appreciate that, but once government starts getting into this idea of this many is going to be for workforce, then government is in dictating market demand. If too many developers build apartments and there's a super capacity of apartments, then the prices are going to go down. That's a developer's risk. He needs to take that risk on. He's aware of that risk. But if we start telling developers, this is what you need, then you're never going to have an efficient market. So I just be careful about dictating him.
Well, not only that, but you're attacking it from the wrong end. And the problem is, in this area, it's a tough call, because we don't want density. We're hearing it tonight, right? But guess what creates affordable housing? Density. So you have to be careful what you're asking for and what you're arguing, because it's those things that create, it's supply and demand. It's not pricing on the thing. The pricing is determined by supply and demand. So you're trying to regulate it through these mechanisms, and the problem is it just doesn't work. If you're really serious about the issue, give more density. I mean, throughout, and I'm not talking here on this particular, just talking about throughout the whole city. And I think there has been some discussion about that. But we don't like having that conversation, because that's a dirty word in
But we
Stewart.
haven't seen in other places that density, that higher.
I'm having trouble hearing you, Chris. I'm sorry.
Let me
That's
just
right.
take
No,
a
I
thing
know.
off. We haven't seen in other places that higher density has lowered prices.
You have not seen that where,
That-
in other places?
South Florida. So, do you see what I mean? Like, in other places, the higher density hasn't brought rents down, hasn't brought.
I'm not sure that's true.
It is,
And again, of course, you get to the point of what's affordable and what isn't. But, I mean, apparently, I'm going to use a good example. I always hear that we don't want to be Port St. Lucie and stuff because of the type of housing and the type of stuff that's there. And yet, so everybody is appalled by what occurs in Port St. Lucie, but that's where a lot of the pricing that you're talking about is occurring.
Right, but it's only going to be restricted for a time period, 5 years, 10 years, then it goes away. You're talking, what, 5, 6 units? We're not talking big percentages and stuff. You don't have to give us an answer here.
Okay, well, yeah, we can't tonight. But, I mean, listen, I hear you, and I'm not, but I just think, again, it's a bigger picture. I mean, I've been doing this for a living for 25 years, so I understand what's going on out there in this market and with this area. And so, we have certain visions how we want things. The other things that run against affordable housing and the stuff that we do, and I deal with this on Friday, then impact fees jack up. All this stuff that we throw on top has an impact in the bottom line at the end of the day. So I think it's an important topic. It's just bigger
that we can do tonight.
than.
Well, but also, I mean, if we don't do it, if we don't have the conversation, if we just say like, well, it's not our job, and the developer says, well, it's not my job.
No, I didn't say that.
I mean,
It's not a job. I'm just talking about the philosophical position with respect to housing. And I also think that there's probably a lot more affordable housing in the city of Stewart, and we'll look into that, than what you might believe.
okay, I think let's take affordability out of the issue and just think about livability. I mean, because we do have a responsibility to approve projects that fit the character of our city and create a livable environment. Like, do we buy this as a neighborhood? Can we do better? Is this the future? This is going to be here forever. Is this the future that we want?
Anybody have any comments on that? Questions?
I guess I do. It is not the future that I want, really. I mean, I want Costco. I think that would be great to have, and at the same time, I see this project as being incredibly dense for that. I don't see it. I see the retention ponds as being unimaginative and sad. I think that you could do a lot better. I see the parking lot as a total mess, and as it gets hotter, it's going to be an issue for us. And if we can at all change it, if we can at all make it better, why not? I mean, I can't believe that's the best design for a parking lot that we can come up with. And I think that's a lot of units of housing for that amount of space that's devoted to housing. And I know that the way that we count the numbers is by the whole project, but the reality of it is that all of those people are going to live in one spot. So I have a hard time with that.
Anyone else?
Yeah, I mean, the plan is a plan. The only thing is, I'm sure they've done pretty good studies to, figure out why they're going there. And parking lots, the city, we dictate the amount of parking that's required, okay? I think they have an option if they want to try to reduce it, but they and staff have already been, determining. So we had the same thing with Walmart when Walmart came through.
But Walmart,
Okay.
we made them change a lot of things at Walmart. We made them give us landscaping in the parking lot. We made
Correct.
them give us access road. They worked for it. They did a lot of things for their project.
Yeah, they preserved a bunch around the highway.
They
you know,
did.
Vegetation, so,
And here we have square retention ponds.
true, but I'm not justifying because I am not a good planner, okay? But the size of those are really big, okay?
They are.
So from a ground view, they're much bigger than they look on the picture. But then again, the projects today, they have to have these things. And if, by doing that, they've reduced your discharge of what we call pollution, nitrates and phosphates. They've removed them from even the existing land. They have to meet less than the existing land would discharge. So the engineer is correct, they need a large volume. But planners, that's out of my scope, But again, it's like the Walmart, right? It's a big store, traffic. And one thing I say is typically Walmart, unless it's Christmas or something, they've got like half the space is empty, okay? But you have to have the spaces because we have a minimum that we require. Now, I don't know if you can, request that the city reduce it, but there are parking minimums that they use, so. But they may be able to give up some spaces where you can get bigger trees in if it's available for us to do, but I'm not sure if staff has that authority to allow us to do that.
Is there an answer to that? It was saying that maybe you could change the requirements for parking.
Well, yes, Kevin Freeman, Development Director. What we've seen with PUDs in the city is a reduction of required parking spaces, and we've seen an average of about 1.6 per residential unit. Really, what we allow to be discussed and negotiated with planned unit developments is what works for the market with respect to what the developer requires. Having said that, we are always trying to encourage a reduction in parking and an increase in landscaping within the parking areas. We have made these suggestions. We've made more suggestions and a lot of suggestions that you're making tonight. It's the developer's prerogative to bring forward a plan, and that's what they've done tonight.
Do we have any other discussion?
I'll make a comment. So, like I mentioned, I appreciate the Costco and what it brings to the market. I know time is money, and you guys have spent years on this and a lot of time and effort. I just think if there's something you can do in that residential area, and I'm not saying necessarily less density, but, and I think it's been said, maybe more creativity, maybe more interconnectivity, something in that pocket. I think the commercial up front, I'm okay with. I'm okay with the Costco. It's that residential piece that, to me, it's just not fitting the way it is. And I don't have more to give you than to say, if there's something else there, then I think I'm going to be supportive. But right now, with how it looks and where it is, I don't know if I'm there.
Would somebody like to make a motion?
Is there any chance of splitting this PUD up and getting the Casco portion of it approved and leaving the residential side?
You know what? To that point, I'd like to maybe hear from the developer on, listen, here's our business model. If you're telling us that we need to get rid of 30 units, then we're a no-go. We're out of here, Stuart. And I'd like to something, and I am not trying to negotiate with you. I just want to know,
It's fair.
just
Yeah.
give us your thoughts on that.
So first of all, I don't think that this rendering does the project justice because you're seeing it from the wrong view. If you were looking at it from the street view, you'd be able to appreciate all the landscaping that would probably block a good portion of your view to the ponds. And they are, I call them ponds because they are large, to your point. As far as the residential, our model is we wanted to build a very upscale rental project, 10 to 15,000 square foot clubhouse. So when you're looking at the project on that, well, that's the courtyard side, which is going to have a pool and full amenities. But on the other elevation, if you go back to the site plan for a moment, is there a point? Oh. Who's it? So how do you put the beam on? So this elevation right here is a combination of 1 to 2 story glass that wraps around this whole side. So when you come through here, this will be the entrance. This is all clubhouse. You can actually see through the building to the lake, to the pool, and all the amenities out there. So I would say from that point to the end of the building is all clubhouse and amenities, with a beautiful view through the building, so you pull sort of what's in this whole courtyard area right through. It's very visible. It also has a visibility line through the retail where we hope to get some good restaurants with outdoor eating areas, umbrellas, et cetera, and so this will all work together. The rest of the building, it was pointed out that this elevation is long, but what you're not seeing on the building elevation is there are 2 wide openings here and here that allow people to pass through onto this green area and be able to traverse around that heavily planted landscape and lake area. So there's there's breaks in the building, there's breaks in the elevations, the buildings are in and out, so they don't look like one long facade. And this is all green between the 2 buildings. So it's tough to appreciate that from this plan, unless you actually walk through the floor plans and we dropped you down to this sort of street level to look in. But, one thing about the number of units, the truth of the matter is, whether it's 398 or 350, no one's going to know how many units there are there from the road. That's something that we're talking about that people get hung up on. What helps us make the project affordable when we're trying to highly amenitize it, concierge, staff, support, services to our residents, is the more units we can get, the cheaper it is for us to provide those services per head. So when you're trying to do a highly amenitized project, you do need the numbers because you're still paying for your general staff, whether you have 50 units or 350 units. And so what happens is if you get forced down in density, you have to make the numbers work because people are only going to pay so much, even if you gold plate it. So we want to give people as many amenities as we can because we're trying to raise the bar for what for what the developer did before us. So we are really trying to have a project where people say, that's where I want to live. And I've heard a lot of comments about, well, who's going to want to live next to a Costco? I could tell you that my directive to my development team is, we need to landscape this to the hilt. Because I want to block the apartment section out from the Costco. I mean, because we have a big investment there, and that's why we wanted to heavily landscape this area, create this distance from the road to the buildings, and create a separate environment for the apartments.
Jackie, can I ask, when you're saying, and, well, you too, creative, what are you looking for when you mean that term? Like the architectural styling? Are you looking for the type of property? What are you saying?
I think a true neighborhood feel requires variety. I hear what you're trying to say completely, and I understand that the way to keep costs down is to build it all the same. But as a neighbor, that's, I think, not what makes our town vibrant and special. And I think that while I totally understand that your prerogative is to make as much money as possible on this project, we could have a better neighborhood for these people if we saw not just a giant block of concrete. And personally, dense, mega dense. I'm all right with density. I agree that, we need density. For me, it's an environmental imperative to have density, but we don't need poor urban design. And to me, it's uninspired. We could be doing more. We could have, a variety of houses, size, shape, price perhaps, that aren't all just one giant concrete block. This feels suburban. It feels like something that you would see in like a nameless town. It doesn't feel to me like something that I could say, I'm proud that I voted for that project and it's been built now. And I desperately want to vote for this project, so if you could just give me something.
Well, no, but I'm happy to work with you. Look, it's not only about how much money, for the long term, we want to build something that's sustainable and that stays rented, because we're doing a phenomenal job and we've created a phenomenal environment. So I'm with you on that. And I'm happy to work with staff on architecture, landscaping. We've been that way this entire time, as far as our ability and willingness to work with members of staff and the board. So we're happy to do that. I mean, every good idea that comes out that we can implement, I'm all for it. I'm not stuck on anything. Believe me, if this thing turned out to be, I wouldn't want to own a concrete jungle. I know you're referring to it that way, but I certainly wouldn't. It's not what we do. It's not who we are. We're private owners, just like you all up here. We have a lot of pride in it. It's our name. And, we've been in business a long time. We've gone through recessions. We never failed with a bank. We never gave a property back, and so I do relish and welcome, all the comments. And by the way, there's towns where we set a few units aside and we mandated them to veteran housing. We were offering them to veterans first. And we're big with that. If you look up who we are, sometimes when you're dealing with good people, you don't have to ask much because they do the right thing anyway. So I understand the board has an obligation. I wish we knew each other better. It would be less of a challenge, because it really does matter who's on who's on both sides. So, but we're Jackie, we're happy to work and consider ideas that you have. Where you want to make it work.
And I do think that, to interrupt, that the plan for the water retention areas is really sad. Do you know what I mean? Like you've got a straight edge of water there along a road that maybe there's a 30-foot buffer between the road and and that, but we're talking about 300 feet of a straight thing of water. I mean, there's nothing natural about it. Do you know what I mean? There is nothing, like, there's no reason that this cannot have areas that look like they're a part of the world that it's set in, you know? And rectangular ponds don't really exist in nature, you know? They're like a man-made object, and you will always have these things that look man-made instead of a beautiful thing that you could have.
I'm happy to curve things. Look,
Yeah.
it's hard enough to get the guys to do it straight in the first place, so if I make a curve.
Yeah,
it's
make a
easier.
curve. Room for mistake,
It doesn't
right?
have to be
It's
that
like,
perfect.
great.
I build in a margin of error. I also know that the engineers are also trying to fit capacity. And so they have to be mindful of that, but, you know, pop out some peninsulas, that's some landscape to do what? I'm all for it.
And then there's the parking lot over there.
So the parking lot, one thing we could do with the parking lot, the biggest thing with Costco is they want the customer experience to work. And, you know, if you happen to go down the wrong aisle, that's a big parking lot, and you don't want to have to go all the way around because you went down the wrong aisle because there's curbs in the way. But we could probably add tree diamonds, where we could add shade trees into the parking lot, if that's okay, because.
Uh-oh.
Hear what you say.
He's looking in the wrong direction.
You know, so, yeah, we're happy to do that, and,
And we can't count palm trees as shade trees. We can't count palm trees as shade trees.
no, so I heard you.
Okay,
Yeah,
because,
yeah, yeah.
all right, and, yeah, I still have problems.
You know, again, it's a balance between serving the customer safely and getting them in and aesthetically too. But I think if we add shade trees, I think it'll go a long way to soften it.
will.
Certainly again, seeing this from the sky level, from the plan view, is much different than when you're at the pedestrian level and you see a lot of the, you know, the enhanced landscaping around the ponds. I'm not even sure how much of those ponds you're going to see. Are you going to see how much at grade level?
We're going to try to block it with, as you mentioned, with shrubs running along the road. There may be some loose through or something like that. We're going to try to block it.
And, you know, we'll work on the architecture of the buildings, the unit mix. You know, we have 1s, 2s, and 3s. And, you know, we're happy to, a lot of it's architecture and landscaping.
Yeah, because I would actually tend to agree with you, because when they have the renderings of the possible what it would look like, it doesn't fit with what is kind of the charming part of Stewart. Like, the current, you know, when you flip to the picture of what it currently looks like, it does look like concrete.
So is there an architecture that you like?
Well, I will say that when they last, and they were they're a different project, they were, I believe, townhouses that just came before us last time, but they had more of a Key West style to them, which seems to be a style that is more
We'd be willing
appealing to a lot of
we'd
people
be
here.
happy to work with that style. I mean, we would like to
But-
do what the people want.
For me, it's more about space than style, right? Like, you can do anything beautifully. You could have the most modern place ever, and it would be beautiful. But I think what's around it is that, there's so much parking, and I know you have to have the parking, but there's so much long lines of parking, right? Like, you have this long line of building and this long line of parking. And what are these people gonna, you know, what are they gonna do?
Although I will say from so you're looking and saying that from the Costco side, right?
No, I'm looking at a straight line of driveway, right up.
Oh, so you're looking at the
going
residential
right up
side
at the
from that?
residential, and then I'm looking at a straight, long line with a walkway, I think, through it.
Well, that's not,
Of-
that's all green.
That's all green, but it's what, about 50 feet?
Oh, no, that's about at least, what is that, 250? Right here?
Between the buildings?
Oh, yeah. No, the length.
You know, the tree area between the buildings? What's the width there?
What's roughly the length?
50 feet, right?
The width.
It's probably about 300 feet, but it's 50 feet, right? So that's going to be this long hall of horror, you know? And-
I'd like to just echo that I think it's about practicality more than style, although I think we could certainly do better on style. But if you live in the, like, how do we make this feel so that it's not apartments surrounded by an island of parking lot that they have to dangerously walk through in order to, you know, get through their gate and then get onto a road that doesn't, you know, maybe, let's say they want to go to these restaurants that are up here, you know, like, if this is going to be a community, it feels like, let's make it one that feels like a neighborhood and not like a strip mall.
Right. Well, we would have connectivity, pavers, et cetera. You know, the challenge is you still have to give people parking. And so we like to put it on one side so we can create the other side all green. Because a lot of times you see these developments and it's like a building with parking around 2-3 sides. And they don't really have a lot of green view. At least these folks are all on a big green area. This building has a lot of green on 3 sides. This building has green. So we wanted to kind of consolidate the parking on one side instead of putting it all around the buildings. Even though it might be thinner, it's, you know, like, there was a plan once where we had parking up here because we wanted to reduce this a bit. And I was like, I don't like that because I wanted all these people looking out over like a green garden rather than having the lot. It would have eased out this lot a little bit, but I would take green away from, and those are like valuable views to be facing the green. So, you know, we certainly happy to work on landscaping, architecture.
Okay.
You know, with staff and.
All right, wonderful. Okay. So does anybody have a motion we would like to make?
I'll take a crack at it. I got a quick question. Kevin, you got one ordinance that we're going to approve, correct, that covers both land use and the CPUD?
Yes.
So a reference to that motion alone is, you know, encompassing that, right?
Yes.
Did we have anybody from the board that gave any specific request outside of just general?
Could I make a suggestion how this may be framed?
Yes, sir.
Hearing the comments from the board, I think there are a number of important criteria that the board would like to see some movement on. The first being more of a connected community, I would say urban designed layout with a variation of architecture and maybe building styles, better connected to both Canna and Willoughby, incorporating multimodal connections. For the applicant to look at increasing shade tree planting in the parking areas. And the configuration of the lakes and the form of those lakes. I think those were the 3 major areas that I take away from this.
And wetlands mitigation.
And in terms of wetlands mitigation,
Oh, just making sure that we're getting
yeah.
our wetlands.
Well, that would be, yes. The applicant, I think, you know, obviously is aware there's a condition in the PUD that they will need to make representation of how they calculated this to ensure that when it moves forward that we have more detail on that. They do have some preliminary calculations, and we could ask that to be more formal before commission. So there's really four points. Is one, to look at the design, architecture, and layout. Two, to look at the connectivity. Three, to look at the parking and the arrangement of parking and the shade trees within that parking. And four, to look at the calculations for mitigation.
So what I intend to do is, if there's any other comments, as far as the board wants to make sure it gets something in, I'm merely going to reference both board comments, which are of record, and Kevin's comments at the end. So, all right, as that, I'll make a motion to approve ordinance number 24662020 before the board, along with the staff comments as well as the board members' comments of record.
Does anybody second?
Second.
Roll call.
You need public comment?
Oh.
Yeah, public comment on the motion.
Public comment on the motion. The motion was to basically take all the comments that we've stated, particularly the 4 specific areas that will need to be addressed while moving forward.
I just wanted to make sure that, since it's going to go straight into permitting, that we will be able to look at the construction plan submittal.
Absolutely.
School district.
Yes,
Thank you.
for sure. Please add that.
So, point of order,
Yes.
is there no final site plan that you need to review before it goes to the city commission?
As a point of order, there will be a new site plan submitted in part of the city commission agenda item if the applicant pays attention to the motion. I mean, they don't have to, even though the motion will tell them to do changes, if they don't do the changes and it gets in front of the city commission will be aware that they didn't do the changes, so it's likely that they'll do them.
I just want to clarify that what you're doing tonight is approving, you're giving your LPA board approval and recommendation that the city commission.
You probably need to come into the microphone.
I think I'm loud enough, but I'd be happy to. I just want to clarify for everybody in the audience that tonight you're voting to basically move this forward with your LPA approval, assuming everybody votes in majority here based on the quorum that you have, so that the city commission can review what may or may not be a final site plan that may or may not include your recommendations and may not actually hold the facts and evidence that we've all provided. And I would like to give this to you, Mr. Strom, where it actually states that it's a low density that was approved. It's from the city's website. So basically, everything that they presented tonight with the convolution of 2 separate parcels that they have combined for the purposes of getting this approved for density alone with math, that is what you are approving this evening. Am I understanding this correctly?
I think it's a very conditional.
I understand that, but I just want to make sure that I and everybody here understands that what is being approved is the combination of the 2 parcels that are being put together for the purposes of getting around a density issue and getting around the purposes of the mitigation for the water and the buffers so that one site plan can be submitted. Am I understanding this correctly?
The commission is or the board is welcome to take public comment. You really shouldn't get into a debate during public comment.
I don't need a debate about it. I
What
just
you
need to know,
do
am I
then
understanding
is to-
this
As a point
correctly?
of clarification for her, maybe we should repeat the motion.
I understood the motion. I just want to make
Then we don't need
sure.
to repeat any further.
I think what Mr. Mortel is saying is that we cannot do a back and forth.
I
We
understand.
can't
I want to make sure
clarify
I am
for you.
understanding it. So the 2 parcels that were combined for the purposes, so where before there was a Canner PUD that was for Costco and a PUD that was for the apartment development are now combined for one approval, which minimizes the density as well as the buffers. Am I understanding this correctly?
We cannot answer that. That is not, from my understanding.
Thank you.
Thank you.
Okay, so I think I'm right. Thank you.
Can I bring it up to them about conflict of interest?
You have a right to go for a public comment as well.
Okay.
Please state your name and fill out a green card when you're finished. I'll get it for you. Just, yeah.
My name is Barry Lezart, and on that 5 acres in question, my daughter and her husband and my grandchildren live. And I have watched this, and I've seen everybody kind of ignore it. when they put that medium in for Splash Park, and you could see the dirt drive going into my daughter's place. They put the medium in there, no regards to their drive. They put the.
Sir, are we addressing this existing project? Because that has to tie back into this existing project, or this project
They
being
have to move the
proposed.
drive?
You're talking about something at Sailfish, so we want to make sure that that's gonna be referenced
Right
about
now,
this.
their proposal is to take it right where my daughter, her husband, and my grandson have got to do a U-turn to come back to their drive every day. All right? Now, we're talking about the increased traffic. I'm really concerned about their well-being and making a U-turn. Whether you're going to put a light there, I don't know. There'll be a light at Splash Park and there, I'm not sure. The other thing I'm concerned about, and I've dealt with this before, conflict of interest. You're in business with Costco, and quite a few of you are members and would like to have Costco here closer for your shopping. Conflict of interest as far as I'm concerned. Thank you.
Mr. Mortel, can you speak to if that, from a legal perspective, is considered a conflict of interest?
I reviewed, I don't know if this is on, there it goes. I reviewed some ethics opinions prior to the Costco matter coming forward because I anticipated that we would have people that were members of Costco. And there's several attorney general opinions as it relates to commissioners that were members of clubs and country clubs and other types of forums. I didn't find Costco in particular, but it said the membership in a club is not sufficient to rise to the level of a conflict of interest, even where there was a commissioner that was an equity member of a country club with a development directly next door that was going to increase the value of the country club. They said it didn't raise to what's called a special benefit, and as a result, it is not a conflict to be a member of Costco and still vote on the matter. I didn't bring it up before because I didn't think anybody was that concerned, but if he asked me if he could raise that as an issue on the record, and quite frankly, the answer is yes, he can.
Thank you. And thank you for raising that and then having it clarified. I think that's important. Okay. Does everybody understand the motion before us that you have now seconded, correct? Okay.
Board Member Bromfield.
Yes.
Board Member Strom.
Yes.
Board Member Mathers.
Yes.
Board Member Vitale.
Yes.
Chair Lorene.
Yes.
Vice Chair De La Vega.
Yes.
Thank you. That is the conclusion of our meeting.
Motion adjourned.
Motion to adjourn.